Okay, and I think we're back. So
It's not Friday.
It's not Friday. And if it's maybe you're an old hand at this by now with us guys that we sometimes have these issues.
We've had a storm, before.
We had a storm. We've been attacked by zombies before out live with Mario Delgado. So, guys, we hope you'll join us back. You probably got a notification that said, we're back on live. So hey, thanks for coming back. What are you gonna do, right, guys? Technology, man. So, what do you think? Double A assigned to maybe get right into it, or should we want to wait for it to build a little bit? We'll wait till we get our regulars back.
Yeah. So what we were saying is that we were talking about Celebrity Fan Fest where we're off, and just saying how it's amazing that all these cons, and we're kind of like wondering, how does a promoter even do it, right? I mean, how does one even stay in business without losing money, without bleeding money?
Right.
And who knows how much they charge the vendors? Maybe that's how they get some of the money back. Maybe they kind of charge the vendors a lot. So
yeah, and I think sometimes maybe too, you're just doing it for the love of the game. Like, hey, you know what? I want to get these people here for my town, and for all we know, I mean, maybe these promoters are independently wealthy, and it's like, you know what I mean? Hey, I'm a jeweler during the day or whatever, and
that one con that was hosted by the Bill Madison crew, our 99.5 crew, he did have a horror con, and he was able to get Elvira to dress up like Elvira for one day. But I don't know if it was probably a success, but probably not in the way he saw it, because he's never done another one. He's never actually promoted another one himself.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he may have actually ended up losing money potentially on that.
But I mean, it's so cool. I mean, he had every, I mean, when you have Robert Englund or Elvira, that's that's a pretty cool twosome.
Definitely. And I'm just going back into our previous video to tell people to come and join our new live that we're back on. So, guys, please go join this new live and check us out, since we had those technical difficulties. And excuse me, y'all know that I'm on my phone when we're on a show, but I want to let everyone know, that we're back on live. So excuse me while I send that message. I'm telling you all to come back onto the new live. All right. And I have one person saying they don't see it yet, but let me see if maybe I can tag them here to get them in live. So this must be sounding great for our audio listeners, right? Guys, again, we do apologize sincerely. There's nothing we can really do about what happened. All I did was turn the Wi-Fi off and back on, and we were worried that we lost our first 30 minutes of audio. But we were able, it did manage to save. So that's a good plus for us. So, again, like Double A said, we're not drinking. It's Thursday, not Friday. And so some difficulties are to be expected. So it says that we are with you guys on Facebook Live. And
we got some people showing up.
A few people showing up. So we appreciate that and you guys being here. So I don't know, Double A, what do you think? Would you get right on into it?
Yeah, let's get into it. Yeah.
All right, guys. So if you read the description on part 1, which is not here, so it leads more to the mystery. And normally our attire gives it away somewhat, but Double A couldn't find his T-shirt, so so there's that. Adding to the now I see. You know what? It's that moon, Double A.
Yeah.
Fucking that strawberry moon is getting us with bad juju. So here you go, guys. You get a show one night early with all the technical difficulties you can imagine. So Rich is back. What's up, Rich? We appreciate you being here. And Led, who said yay, so we appreciate that too. Guys, spread the word, tag people to come back over here. Come on to this new one, because we're missing Steve. Anybody, and Jason, guys, one of you can tag Jason Ruiz in the comments to come on in, that'd be great. He messaged us what happened. I was like, I don't know, everything's broken, fucking strawberry moon.
A few weeks ago, I want to say it was this month, right?
Yeah, I think
a
so.
A few weeks ago, there was a 2-part special, which I kind of ran into. I surprised I didn't hear about it, but it was about Mike Tyson, baddest man on the planet, Iron Mike. Everyone that knows him. The walking with no music, just black trunks. And that's it, ready to fight. It was a more updated documentary. That covered everything from his early childhood all the way to recent, with Roy Jones and everything. So it was a really, really cool documentary. I called up everyone I knew that was a boxing fan. I was like, hey, you got to turn on ABC right now. It's Mike Tyson. They're showing some really cool highlights, of, his Olympic gold medals and, his, destroying opponents, I mean, it was just, I'm a huge boxing fan. CMS too. We love boxing, and when you have a guy like a Tyson that just comes in like a storm, like a hurricane, and just grabs everyone's attention for a few, hours, boxing is the center of the universe, for a lot of people. And there was no bigger star in the 80s and 90s than Iron Mike Tyson, man. The guy was the shit. He was the heir apparent to Muhammad Ali.
Absolutely.
I mean, golly, it's just what I've always said, from the 80s, it was particular 80s, the perfect fighter, the perfect machine, the perfect destroyer, speed, quickness, athletic ability, power, just defense, offense. I mean, man, this guy had it all, and he was a really good boxer. A lot of people kind of downplay that a lot sometimes, but if you look at those old, if you look at the 80s, I mean, man, the guy is dodging punches, moving around, doing combinations, his, body uppercut, that became like a very signature maneuver of the Tyson, I mean, any of his uppercuts really, but it was always the boom, boom, because he punched so hard that, you'd be like, oh, and then you leave yourself wide open. Oh,
right. The youngest world heavyweight champion 20 years old. For me, it was a lot of information that I didn't know, that I've never opened a book about Tyson or really looked out for documentaries like this that documented his, his past. Obviously, the man is such an icon, and I shared with AA. I'm a big fan of comedy. You guys know this, especially stand-ups. One of the great stand-ups, Tom Segura, tells a great story about meeting Mike Tyson. It's a huge end of one of his specials, and then the start of one of his other specials, because it's a story that's kind of a cliffhanger. But he talks about how they're on a plane together, and the man is famous on another level of famous, where it's international fame, where it's a fame where even in other countries they don't speak our language, they know his name, that you'll be speaking their language and then you'll hear Mike Tyson. You know what I mean? That's how world recognized he is.
Global.
Right, global. I mean, it's like who's on that short list, AA? Elvis, Michael Jordan.
Elvis,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's surpassed the sports. You know what I mean? It's that other stratosphere of, like, a global icon.
Again, he became like a Muhammad Ali, where Muhammad Ali was known worldwide, Africa, Japan, Russia.
Yeah, and there's something about it being a heavyweight, and at that time,
it always is. The heavyweight division, when it's on fire, is just, like I said, the center of the universe.
Yeah, and I mean, he was, like we said, the heir apparent, great looking. Whereas a lot of times there's questions in any other sport, who number 2 was, or who would be the next. Basketball, obviously the most famous, the Kobe's, the LeBrons.
Yeah, who takes over Jordan after Michael?
I mean, I don't think that there's really any question. I think that, and the other thing is, when it comes to boxing, is because it really would have been Tyson, except for some things that obviously happened in his life, personal missteps, but also the personal losses. AA.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, let's become Uatu for a minute and be the watcher and play what if. AA. Let me ask you this: what if Cus D'Amato doesn't die? Does he become the GOAT, the greatest of all time? Does he work through those personal difficulties?
I think he does, because I think if he had kept his handlers, if they had somehow lived, his promoter had lived, Cus D'Amato had lived, maybe even Teddy Atlas, maybe what if that doesn't happen? Him and whole Teddy, they keep him, because look, when all his handlers died, he got new guys. His old training crew, you start seeing them, they're not there anymore, and his fighting style completely changes. I mean, it's bad. Where you've seen the footage of him in the 80s, He's like this.
Mhm.
He's moving. He's dodging. He's landing perfect punches all over the place.
Yeah.
Where in the 90s, you can tell he was just going in and trying to land a punch.
Right.
You know,
Going with just like raw power.
Raw power. That's it. His fighting skills greatly go down.
Diminished.
In the 90s. You know, bad without the right. Because, you know, by then he's running on intimidation and his power. Right. Which are both very scary. Both very scary tools. But if you're going up against an Evander Holyfield, a Lennox Lewis, you know, a really smart fighter,
skilled boxer, very skilled boxer,
you know,
with knockout power too.
But I would say, if you always put like an 86, 87 Tyson against an Evander Holyfield, I want to say Tyson's going to take it real easy. You know,
yeah.
Lennox, on the other hand, I don't know. Lennox is like that rare fighter that was just really good. When he was on, Lennox was on. You know, he didn't take chances. You know,
right?
We saw Lennox, in his prime.
Very, very, very smart.
That guy was so hard to beat.
Yeah,
he was a hard fighter to beat.
Yeah, smart, almost to a fault. Where it was like boring.
He got boring, or if he got really overconfident, like a lot of boxers do, like Tyson did. Yeah, that's where you get your upsets from.
And that's what another thing that was so captivating about Tyson is that he did what we kind of look for in boxing, which was knock people out. And brutally, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I said, but the way he did it, man, it was so brutal and so precise.
Yeah.
It wasn't like ugly, you know, like all over the place.
No.
This was combinations.
Yes.
Knowing where to punch, where to go, connecting on the fucking chin,
right?
Connecting on the face. I mean, it's beauty. It's a beautiful thing to watch when you see a prime Mike Tyson.
You posted up a great clip in the Friday Night Faithful this week. Him against this guy.
Yeah, on his way to the top.
Yeah, and it's a short clip, as most of his fights are against certain people. You can watch it in a minute.
Yeah.
But what I went back and when I watched it my second and third time, because you watch it a couple times, was, man, and I don't know if it gets talked about double, but the footwork.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. He
was moving. This guy looked almost like maybe a head taller than Tyson.
Yeah, this guy looked like he was about 6'5", 6'6", easily. Probably outweighed him by maybe 30, 40 pounds.
Yeah.
And Mike is bobbing. He's weaving. He's moving.
This guy his feet, not living a true kind of cutting off the ring, creating the space he wants to work in. So to me, that is such like a key element, because it's like, once I have you're only going to move in this area. Now I can throw right into where I want you to come, and you can catch this.
That's what I'm saying. If you look at it past 1990, all that's gone. All that is almost completely gone.
Yeah,
this is not the same Mike Tyson that we see in the 80s. Like you said, footwork. I totally forgot about footwork. Man, the man's footwork was just amazing.
And it's funny. I used to think about footwork, and I would think about like a guy like Ali. You do the little shuffle and all that. That's one thing, right? But then when you watch modern heavyweights, like you look at like someone like Wilder, it's not really there.
No, Wilder's ugly. He's ugly to look at.
Yeah, even Tyson Fury. It's like it's flat-footed. It's not elegant.
I like Wilder's knockouts, but he's really ugly to watch.
Yeah, the whole package is ugly.
Like I said,
the throws and everything.
Like I said, if you're a big fan like us, you're just like, golly,
Deontay Wilder.
He's looking for that punch. Yeah, really,
Yeah.
So.
And there's just a lot of things that are truly missing that were from that time or whatever. And that was one of the really cool things I looked at in the video that Double A posted, was just, the way Tyson moved around. It was like,
beautiful.
He was going to tell you, he was dictating more or less where you were going to go. And that gives him all the control.
And not just that, but they are intimidated. This guy is coming, this monster that, has a reputation already. It's just killing people.
Yeah.
And you're just like, holy shit, this guy's coming. This, 5'10", 220-pound machine is just rumbling towards you.
And 5'10", not super tall. Not by heavyweight standards, am I right?
That's really short for a heavyweight.
And one of the cool things I learned in this documentary that was a talk about from his former trainer, Teddy Atlas, right? Was that you're going to catch me saying Tony Atlas later on. It's a whole different. But Teddy Atlas is that he says he started to do this move where he would kind of crouch down and then throw up.
Yeah.
Which we've also heard is like, you're exerting more energy when you're punching up.
You're going like this. You're not getting the full punch. You're using more energy to go like that.
Right. But he was saying that with Tyson, he would kind of bend his legs. So then it's like now you're creating like a power
More
base
power.
to throw from.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I mean, well, we saw it over and over again. He knocked out taller guys all the time. I mean, it was like
And
crazy.
quality opponents, like he made them look super easy, but a lot of these names were great good heavyweight names, really solid names. Okay, these were really the top guys that he was beating along the way in the 80s.
You know, the guy he beats to become the youngest world heavyweight champion, Trevor Berbick, I didn't know that he was the last man to beat Muhammad Ali. That was an interesting fact in the documentary.
Now, I don't know if that's like something though I'd say like proudly.
Right.
Only because like Ali was he already should have
way past
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
which happens in boxing, right?
It happens
people
to
don't
Tyson.
It
happens to Tyson too. But just to say that you fought Muhammad Ali, just to say you beat him, you know, obviously you want that on your record. Just like anybody that wants to fight Tyson.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, I beat Mike Tyson. That's on my resume. You know?
What's the talk right now? People are now talking about potentially another De La Hoya Mayweather, and it's like, is this? Do we want to see this right now?
I don't want to see that. I don't.
You know, no good. But yeah. So guys, we're mainly going to be talking about obviously, you know, the career and our love for Tyson as a fighter, but mainly our focus is going to be on the documentary that we both watched, again called Mike Tyson: The Knockout.
It's on, if you didn't see it on ABC and you have Hulu, it is still available on Hulu.
Yeah, thankfully AA, I was able to watch it a part 2 off of his Hulu because I didn't get a chance to record part 2, and I missed the beginning, but then I got to go back and rewatch and see part 1. But man, it's just a really great documentary, and it does a lot more than just focus on the man's fighting career, because obviously. Yeah. This is a guy that if you're around our age, we saw his entire career from the rise to the meteoric fall and, you know, the controversy and then kind of the phoenix coming from the ashes and in a different form. And, you know, as part of my research, I went and even watched his one-man show, which was on Prime, I believe, The Undisputed Truth. His Undisputed Truth, it's Tyson.
It's really good. I'm glad you said it's on Prime because I didn't know where it was because I saw it on when it came out.
It might be HBO Max.
Okay, HBO,
one of those.
I was able to see it when it came out, so I didn't know it was streaming anywhere else. So yeah, I want to go back and revisit that one.
Yeah, it's so wonderful, and
it is. He, you know, people think he's like a dumb shit, but
right?
Man,
no,
that guy, he's really good at storytelling. He's a really good storyteller. You can image what he's talking about. You can imagine what he's talking about. This guy's not stupid by any means.
No, not at all. And one of the things that people talk about too is that he had a wonderful sense of humor, and I think that he really did. And you know, a lot of this story is really kind of tragic to me. And there were parts, especially in his one man story, but also in the documentary that. You know, it's not that it's hard to make me emotional, but you know, it really is emotional.
It's a really up and down. I mean, just from the beginning, you know, the rough upbringing, you know, that most of these boxers have. Yeah, if you look at any of them, you know, most of these boxers have a really hard upbringing, and it always leads them to boxing because that's where you can let out your most aggression.
Sure,
you know, a lot of them have become super. You know, I was watching the Kings, and it's documenting the '80s, kind of like when. Tyson, where they show like the welterweights are like the main focus of the boxing world.
Right.
But you know, Marvin Hagler had that same background. Tommy Hearns had that same background. Roberto Duran definitely had that background, probably worse than anyone. You know, so yeah, all these guys are usually always from the streets, and you know, are always just fantastic boxers. Once you mold them, once you fix them and mold them, they become these really perfect machines. You know.
Yeah, and in this one, the knockout does a couple of parts in there. It does kind of cool where people are recanting stories. Tyson does talk in part 2 at the end.
He does. Yes, he does. Which was cool.
Yeah, which was cool. But they get several other, you know,
talking heads
to speak, and they talk to Teddy Atlas.
Yes, they did. Which I was really surprised he came on because you know, if you know the Tyson Atlas history, you know, something bad really went down between them.
Yeah, and it's funny because this documentary, I'm glad that I watched The Undisputed Truth because he addressed something specific that they didn't really clarify in this one. So, well, let's tell that story, Double A, so we could talk about.
So Teddy Atlas was kind of like a young trainer, you know, and he was kind of mentoring. He was right there. He was pretty much Custom Auto's main trainer for Tyson, and he was fixing him, molding him, you know, and he had him over his house. I think it was his house, right? Teddy's house. And, you know, Teddy had a young sister-in-law, very young, you know. And, you know, Tyson at this point, he's like 17, 18. I think the sister-in-law was like 13. You know,
Let me stop you right there. This is what I want to clarify. He clarifies this in the Undisputed Truth. He was only 15, he says.
15. Okay.
Yeah. And he said he did not know
that makes sense.
she was,
that would make sense.
I think she was 12.
Yeah, because when Teddy was training him, it was about 84, 85. So yeah, give or take.
Yeah.
You know, and he grabbed her ass, you know, and you know, Teddy, if you know Teddy Atlas, if you know the dude, if you've ever seen him, he's a guy that's not really going to take a whole lot of shit. You know, and you know, I'm pretty sure he thought Tyson was a dangerous dude too, even though he was training him. You know, because he did say Customato would always kind of like every time he did something, Customato would just kind of brush it off, like, don't, you know, right, it's all right, it's okay, you know, it's all right, you know, and so that kind of crossed the line with Teddy. They had a big issue about it, a blowout issue. Teddy, you know, pretty much points a gun at him and tells him, you know, you ever do something like that again, I'm going to blow your fucking head off, you know. And, you know, obviously he told Cuss, you know, dismissed Teddy. And that had been a bad thing between them two. Like, Teddy did not respect Mike after that, did not like him. He stopped working with Mike as soon as that happened. So, yeah. So I was really surprised when Teddy Atlas actually came on the show. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I know he's a big part of the Tyson history, but I was still, you know, I was like, okay, cool.
He was the one that was training him in the, like you showed, the peekaboo style fighting or whatever, which he used so very effectively, probably more effectively than anybody. Yeah. But I thought that story was kind of like, oh shit, too. But he says it in his, and again, we don't want to stray from the documentary that we watched, but in the Undisputed Truth, his one-man show, which is directed by Spike Lee, he says, he goes, if you go back, you know that I was only like 15 at that time and the girl was only 12. He's like, but he goes, everyone thinks I'm like this already 25-year-old man or whatever when it happened, and it wasn't that way. Still, you know what I mean? Obviously, and he was very apologetic. And what's cool is that in part 2 of this documentary, it talks about their reconciliation.
Which I didn't know that happened. Which I was like, wow, I'm really surprised. And I was really happy when I saw that because I was like, cool, because Undisputed Truth, I don't think they had reconciled at that point.
No, I don't think so.
And it's pretty cool too because it's during this time, like it looks like Tyson's kind of like apologizing to people that he's pretty much fucked over the years or whatever. And this was like a, Teddy Atlas used to do, because me and my dad would watch it. It was like Saturday night fights or Sunday night fights. It was one of those. It was like on the ESPN too.
Okay.
They would always show it, so me and dad would always watch it. And one of these fights, Tyson's just in the ring, and they're like, I guess before the show, they tell Teddy, he's like, Teddy, Tyson's coming, he's coming, and Teddy turns around, and that's when he says, like, yeah, Mike was like, hey man, I just want to apologize for that, incident. It was very wrong of me, it was very disrespectful of me, and I want to put that all under the bridge. And they show him handshaking, they show him hugging, and I was like, cool, they actually did bury the handshake because. I know that was like a really big sore spot for Teddy Atlas. I'm sure he would have loved to have, taken Tyson
continued
the whole way, so.
Yeah. And how unfortunate too, because of the way Mike's life went or whatever, you know what I mean? But, hearing that he was only 15 and the girl was 12, again, I don't know, that they'll say it doesn't make it right, whatever. But it's like, man, it's really like kids. You know what I mean? It's like 2 kids, you know what I mean? And it's like,
but again, Teddy's probably still thinking, this guy's a thug. He's still a thug. Even though like Customado's like, mentoring him and shit like that, this guy, still a thug.
And let's talk about that a little bit. So Mike comes from Brownsville, Brooklyn. People that know super rough, you know what I mean? Yeah, obviously the people that you have to look up to are like, gangsters, gangbangers, people selling drugs, because they're the ones that had, money, things like that. His mom really wasn't around. He was really raised by his sisters, call it raised or whatever, you know what I mean? And he talks about how he's lucky that he got arrested, because when he ended up at the juvenile detention center, that's where Customato found him. Customato, famous fight trainer, Italian guy.
Yeah, his biggest guy before Mike was Floyd Patterson. That's who he had trained. Floyd Patterson is usually considered one of the all-time great heavyweights. So he already had a really great resume. He had managed a world champion already. I think Floyd was the first guy to have actually won the title twice.
Really?
Yeah, so that was like a big thing, because no one had ever won the title like 2 times,
nice.
or something like that, So it was so he had Floyd already on his resume. So, he saw this guy, this young kid, and was like, man, I think I could do something with this kid.
Yeah.
And
at a very, very young age, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, too, like, damn, you get him in early, and it's like they're a lump of clay to mold. You know what I mean?
In boxing, you almost have to start early.
Right.
That's the thing with boxing, is like you kind of have to start off as a teenager, because if you start by your 20s, you're really, really, really late, in your career in boxing. So, like, if you see a lot of these Mexican fighters by the age of 25, they usually have like 40 fights or 50 fights. Some insane amount, of fights that they already have.
Approaching retirement.
Yeah, where their body's already beat up.
No shit, that's rough.
By
man.
33, they look like 43. So.
Yeah, an interesting thing that one of the speakers, and there were several throughout the documentary, said, but it was kind of like, man, you might think like, oh, Cuss did bad by like not punishing Mike and letting him still go to the gym. But the one of them, she goes, Mike needed to be in the gym, because if he wasn't, he was going to be getting into trouble. So it was like, I can punish him and take the gym away, whatever, which he loved and was responding to. But then what do you get? You know what I mean? Like something else bad. And at one point, he eventually moves him into his home, which they said he had done with other fighters. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can tell that this is like going to be laser focus on this. And again, Customato is part of the Mike Tyson lore. It's almost like almost like Elvis and the Colonel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You can't talk about Mike Tyson without Customato.
Right, because everyone also says famously, that his death when Mike was what? Right before he became champion.
And he never saw him champ.
This is a guy that told him, you're going to be the world champion. Yeah. You're going to be the world champion. Now, he did see him win Olympic gold.
Yes, he did.
So that was something that Mike Tyson also accomplished. People may forget about.
Yeah, sometimes you do forget that he has that under his resume.
Just one or two?
Two, I believe.
Two Olympic gold medals in boxing. I mean, can you imagine? I saw they showed some of that footage.
Yeah,
too,
they did.
Which was like, holy shit! And he really wrecked those guys. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I mean, this is a guy, like, it's like watching when, like, the Dream Team played other basketball teams, and they just demolished them because he was razor sharp at that point.
That's what I'm saying.
Young. What did he win it at? AA 18, 19, he wins a gold medal.
Yeah, probably about.
And he gets in there and he, like, he wails on these guys, and maybe, it's like, holy shit. I mean, like, that's like, wow, you knew he was going to be something special, and he was. I mean,
because at that time, when you're a boxer and winning the gold medal, that usually meant, okay, this guy's special. Mm-hmm. Ali won the gold medal, he became what he did. George Foreman won the gold medal, he became big. Sugar Ray Leonard won the gold medal, he became huge. So it's always a great big thing when you
U.S. killing it in boxing.
Yeah. So awesome. I mean, that's when you have someone special.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, very famous. I mean, obviously the man's an amateur and he's going to go pro. So I mean, he does, and they show a bunch of his knockouts, which
and he starts from the very bottom,
Yeah,
and just crushes his way to the top.
What does the one guy say? He says, we fought in a bunch of smokers, and he said they were called smokers, which is like what I imagine is like these kind of like, I don't know, you even call it like a gym or just like a little.
Have you seen Rocky?
Yeah,
like the beginning of Rocky,
right?
Yeah.
Some place they call it a smoker because everyone's in there smoking, and it's like one spotlight on the ring.
Yeah, and it's
just... it's so funny because Friday Nighter Holty Bear is a big fan of the Rocky video game, and you start out and went in like you start out in the beginning of the game with your fighter in this, like, it's called like the meat packing district, and you're just in like this like VFW type place, you know what I mean?
They have that in that
starting it out.
King of the Rings too.
Oh, that Knockout Kings.
Knockout Kings.
Yeah, that's a great boxing game also. Man, and there you know it, guys. Despite all the technical difficulties, we're right up at our first 30-minute break. A few comments in only because, guys, you guys probably lost this, but hopefully you find your way back to this broadcast. I'll do another post if I can and let you guys know to move over to this one. But we are talking Mike Tyson, The Knockout, great documentary, 2 parts by ABC. What, about an hour each, AA? 45 minutes?
Yes, 45, yeah.
Very tight, very solid, very well done. Really beautiful opening. This kind of like, really melodic music, because it really is a tale, an American tale of triumph turned tragedy. I mean, you know, so those aspects are definitely there. But guys, thanks for hanging with us through our technical difficulties. If you joined us on audio, you're gonna get probably a lot beefier show. And if you're just getting to us here on the live version, well, we appreciate you being here on an early edition of Just Another Friday Night here tonight. Just another Thursday night. The strawberry moon causing us all kind of headaches tonight, but nothing as bad as a headache given to you delivered by Iron Mike Tyson. Guys, so give us a second and we'll be right back with you. All right, while we let that audio load, guys, let's take a look. I saw Rich had a few comments in there. Rich says, go ahead, Double A.
He goes, Iron Mike was just boxing. When you think heavyweight, you mentioned Mike Tyson. He had it all. He goes, I think the coaches play a big part with these fighters. I think they can make or break a fighter. Yeah, we've seen that plenty of times. When you get the right, you know, trainer, man, they can take you all the way. You can.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. Sorry about that.
You know, they can mold a great fighter. You know, Lennox Lewis was really good. It wasn't until he got Emmanuel Stewart that he went to that next level. You know,
passed away now too.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, that was very sad because he was doing a lot of commentary on HBO boxing.
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
We're watching it. You know,
yeah.
So I mean, that's always hard.
Is Freddie Roach still training? Yeah,
Freddie Roach. You know what? I don't know because I know his Parkinson's that got really bad. Yeah. You know,
I remember hearing him quoted saying that he said when he could stop doing the mitts that he was going to stop training. So I don't know.
And then you've seen what he did with Manny Pacquiao. I mean, Manny Pacquiao was a monster to you. You know?
Yeah. Only to keep on the topic of boxing, Double A. But did I read right? Did the Anderson Silva just have a boxing match with
he beat Chavez Jr., which I don't think you should even celebrate. Chavez Jr. is not a great boxer by no means. He didn't even make the damn weight. He lost his $100,000 purse for not making weight. So I mean, Chavez Jr. Fine, you beat Chavez Jr. You know, who gives a damn?
Oh, but Anderson Silva's not really a boxer, so it's kind of
so good. You know, that's cool for him. You know, if he wants to try it, you know, that by all means.
You know, after that ankle, that was like
yeah. But Chavez Sr. did fight on that card. He was the headliner against Hector Camacho Jr. So,
really?
Yeah.
How was that?
I want to say that he did pretty well. So what's funny though is that, you know, his son was on the undercard, but what made news is that after I guess the fight, him and Canelo like embraced. So that was kind of like, okay, well, you know.
He's like, you can do it for Mexican fighters, Canelo. Yeah, man, that's tough, man. When your dad's casting a big shadow like that or whatever, you know.
I mean, in Mexico, Julio Cesar Chavez is almost a god in Mexico. I mean, it's rare when you get a fighter that's just huge in their own country and dominates their country. I mean, people love him. You know, guys come and go in America, and you kind of forget about him. Michael Jordan was like the biggest celebrity ever in the 90s, and people kind of, you know, it's LeBron. Yeah. You know, you kind of forget, you know, we kind of forget our sports icons sometimes.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure, man. For sure. He's definitely someone we should look into talking about more because, you know, I'm not that versed in his career or whatever, but obviously a name amongst names of Mexican fighters, you know what I mean? So,
I mean, my dad throughout the 90s, whenever there was a Chavez fight, we used to have videos of Chavez versus Chavez, you know.
Yeah, well, he had like over 100 fights or something like that, right? Crazy record.
My dad loved Chavez, you know, and he was just crazy about Chavez. You know,
yeah. He always to me had the look of like a guy that you might, well, you know, because we're here in San Antonio, a lot of Mexican populists around. It's like there's like a guy you might see like at a bar, like drunk and like but you know, just that look, you know what I mean? But obviously a tough badass for sure, man. So, but guys, let's get right back into the conversation here with you guys as we talk about Iron Mike Tyson and the great ABC documentary, The Knockout. Man, Double A, I'm super glad that you gave me that call to check it out.
Cool.
And we're back, guys. A brief blip, if you want to call it that, talking about the baddest man on the planet, but the great documentary that we watched called Mike Tyson, The Knockout, on ABC. And it was just, a really great watch. So obviously, Double A, like, take us through the paces. I mean, like, it starts us out with young Mike getting discovered, like we said, by Cuss, training there. losing cuss, becoming the youngest world heavyweight champion.
By this point, he's already had like 26 fights, 27. I mean, he's just wrecking people. And Trevor Berbick right now, at that point in 86, is the heavyweight king. You know, he has a title. He's a heavyweight. He's pretty much seen as a champion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Larry Holmes, he's been defeated. Larry Holmes was the dominant heavyweight boxer in the 80s after Muhammad Ali. And he just lost his title to Michael Spinks. You know, so right now you have like Trevor Berbick, you have Michael Spinks, you know, so you have these, you know, heavyweights. And now this guy that's just destroying opponents in first rounds, you know, and now he finally has his chance at the title. And you're like, okay, Berbick's a tall guy. He's not without power himself, you know. Trevor Berbick is a good fighter.
Yeah, he looked like a big guy. He did have definitely the look.
It doesn't last very long. Tyson just goes in there, does Mike Tyson stuff. He's bobbing, he's weaving. You know, he's like CM said, the footwork is there. The combinations are hitting.
He's 20 years old at this time.
20 years old, and this guy demolishes Trevor Berbick. If you don't even know Trevor Berbick, you've probably seen the knockout plenty of times. He hits him right on the temple, and Berbick goes down. He tries picking himself up. He falls down again. It's one of those knockouts that you just hope never happens to you. He gets up again, and he just doesn't know where he's at. And Mills Lane is counting, and his eyes are gone. His eyes are gone. And Mills calls it off, and that's it, man. That's the start of Mike's ascension and dominance of the heavyweight division. He starts right there with Trevor Berbick, the demolishing of Trevor Berbick.
One of the people that speaks frequently throughout both parts of the documentary is famous actress Rosie Perez. She's from Brooklyn also, so that's probably why they tapped her. But she's also a huge boxing aficionado, so she knows her stuff, and obviously followed probably very closely, and was probably a huge fan of Tyson since they came from the exact same part of the country there in New York. So she says this great line right there where she's like, "Man, bless this man's heart, Trevor Berbick," where his heart wanted him to get up and his mind, but his body was like, no. Like the man had no legs, right? Like, it was like, man,
it's like I said, it's one of those knockouts that you just hope never happens to you, and it happens, and you're just like the guy's just falling all over.
He tries to get up once, he tries to get up twice, and then on the third time he falls literally through the ropes, where it's just like, good night, man. Like, fuck, like he got his clock cleaned, and then there it is, like Double A said. I mean, Mike gets now Double A. Let's talk a little bit about this, because we say the world heavyweight champion of the world, but there's always, even at this time, there's still the 3 belts, right? The WBA.
Yeah, by this point, it already had split
WBC,
up. Right? The WBC belt was the dominant belt.
The green, which is the green belt. We always see like Gennady with that one.
Before all the governing bodies started coming out. One came out with the WBA, the other one came out with the IBF. So,
which is the black belt.
The IBF is the red. The WBA is probably the best looking one, the black one. Because it has like a crown,
like a little crown on the top.
And then the WBC obviously is the green one. So when you see everyone with the shirts, everyone always seems to have that shirt with the WBC belt.
WBC belt.
Yeah. So at this point, it was like you used to have one champion. Now you got like 3. So it's kind of split up now, but you kind of can decide. You can always choose who the main heavyweight is. You can always tell who the number 1 is.
Right.
So Tyson now owns a piece of the belt. And again, Michael Spinks has another one, and I forget the other guy that has the other belt. So he takes on, he goes through some more people. He beats Larry Holmes. He knocks out Larry Holmes bad by round 4. We're talking about a guy who ruled the heavyweight division for 7 years, and Larry Holmes, the Eastern Assassin,
What a great name.
Yeah.
Great boxing name.
And he knocks him out in 4 rounds, and Holmes is out. He's completely.
And what
out.
belt does he have?
He had at first the WBC, and then he started wearing the IBF.
Okay.
So
Tyson does eventually take that belt from him.
Not from Holmes. He gets it from another guy, which is pretty much setting up the Michael Spinks. Well, at this point, Tyson's already has a belt, from what I understand. Tyson already by Michael Spinks, he already has all 3 belts.
Yeah.
But Michael Spinks, he was supposed to, they stripped him of the title because he was supposed to defend his title against a mandatory challenger, but he wanted the more money against Jerry Cooney. So he took the more money with Jerry Cooney. So the WB or the IBF, I forget which one, they stripped him of the title. But everyone still sees Michael Spinks as the legit heavyweight
because he wasn't beat. The title
wasn't beat.
Yeah,
it was separated.
Sense. Okay.
So it's building to this really great fight Michael Spinks is undefeated. Mike Tyson is just brutal. Both of these men are both seen as the true heavyweight champ. You know,
yeah.
You know, Michael Spinks is no slouch. He's always considered one of the greatest light heavyweights ever. He's the first guy that made a jump from light heavyweight division to the heavyweight division, and he beat Larry Holmes twice. Again, no small feat. Larry Holmes is super hard fighter to beat. Always.
Yeah, for sure.
So man, this fight was huge. Like, people forget because it ends so quick, but this fight was huge. Yeah. It was, you know, one of the highest grossing heavyweight fights of all time.
And he talks too on the documentary. Yeah, and so you get to hear from him himself.
And again, there is a big part of people that see Michael Spinks as the legit heavyweight king. So, you know, it comes in big fight, big super fight, big build up, you know. Man, he just demolishes Michael. And again, Michael is not a slouch. He's usually considered one of the best fighters. But, you know, I mean, Michael, he doesn't look heavy at all. Michael Spinks looks like he's like 190. Yeah. You know, and
it makes me wonder what his like walking around weight was. Like, did he have to gain weight to go up? Or?
Tyson looks like a true heavyweight compared to him.
Oh, man.
He kills,
I think
Michael Spinks.
Titty Atlas says it at one point where he says the way Cuss saw Mike was like a big hunk of marble, and that he was going to carve out a great fighter out of him. And the man literally did look carved. Like, it was like
he does. That's what I'm saying.
Great ass shape. He looks.
His legs are thick.
Yeah,
his arms are big.
Oh yeah,
you know, he's in that perfect shape. That's why I say he's like from the 80s Tyson. That guy is like the perfect wrecking machine.
And I have to admit, see, it's good that I have double A here, that you all have double A here to tell you about how great Spinks was. Because if you just look at the guy, you might say, man, this guy looks like this guy with this 80s mustache up against Mike Tyson. It's about to be short, but that's just you making an assessment without knowing anything. Because when I saw it, it was like,
trust me, if we're watching this live, we would have been super pumped up to see these two guys go at it. Right. Trust me, we would have been.
But the record spoke for themselves. They were both undefeated, so that's always exciting too.
And again, he had made history. He jumped the division. No light heavyweight had ever won a heavyweight title ever. Right. There had been a few guys that tried to make that jump, and they always lost. Yeah, you know. So for Michael Spinks to do it and then beat Larry Holmes twice, that was huge. Yeah, that was voted upset of the year.
And that kind of solidifies your name, right? Like that, like, you know, okay, now you've done it, so you are legitimate. So, but again, Tyson makes short work of it.
Just right? Like, I mean, everyone, you know, and for about 4 years, the man reigns as the ultimate fighter, the ultimate champion, the ultimate heavyweight, destroying people, just killing them bad. Yeah. But then, as we see in the documentary, a lot of the dominoes start falling during this whole time period that he is just carving the heavyweight division, that is just dominating the heavyweight division. You start to see kind of his people kind of go. You know, important people. You know, obviously he started with Cuss, but Cuss still had people still surrounding him. He still had his people,
his wife, or not wife, but his they call it partner. I guess they weren't married. Yeah, but he lived in that house.
You know, he had his promoter that he had. You know, he still had his good trainers that really wanted to help Mike. And you know, the promoter guys, I forget his name. I hate myself for not knowing, because it looked like he did Mike wonders. You know?
They were taking care of his money. They were taking care of him.
They were actually taking care of his money.
They say it in the documentary, guys, that they were like, these guys would make sure he was at home by 9. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
he wasn't out.
Can you imagine being like, you know, a young, you know,
you're 20, 18, 20, you know,
minority athlete. You come from nothing. You never had fucking a dime, and then you have literally the entire world.
And then did you see his home?
Oh yeah,
I was like, wow, for a 21-year-old, 22-year-old, this guy had a huge fucking house. I think that was the first time I had ever seen his house. Yeah, you know, I've never seen like the inside of his first home. And
I wonder if that's the one that later on, or no, I think he had a home in California later on. There's a famous story where like he sold one home, I think it was in California, and that 50 Cent bought it. So 50 Cent lived or used to live in what was Tyson's old home, which it said there was like some cool stuff still in there or whatever. But
yeah, during this time, you know, okay, so Tyson's exploded. It's Tyson's everywhere. Everyone knows Tyson, Mike Tyson, Iron Mike, you know, Kid Dynamite, the baddest man on the planet.
Yeah, even this guy on my shirt refs some of his fights.
Mike Tyson's punch out,
man. I mean, that's a game right out of our youth that we loved. You know what I mean? And that has its own story, because number one, they said he signed some crazy deal with the company that with Nintendo, because that game is put out like by Nintendo. I think he only made $50,000 for a game, for the game or whatever. You know, a lot of money. You know,
still,
and at that time even more.
And who gets a boxing game where you're actually the main character?
The only guys that probably had their names and stuff was like John Elway's football. Was that it? Wayne Gretzky, maybe? I mean, like,
Michael probably had a game.
Jordan, Jordan probably had Jordan versus Bird.
But again, there had been no boxer for a long time that had captivated audiences that just, wow, people wanted to see him. You know, people bought pay-per-views by the millions to watch this guy fight.
Man. It was truly like an event, like something that you look forward to. Remember, no social media, but word was out on this guy is the new man in town. You know what I mean?
Like I said, just the way he came out, this guy would come out with no music. He would come out ready to fight. His gloves, you know, he had maybe a towel on.
Yeah,
and
a towel with like a poncho towel.
Yeah. He just come out looking to kill. Like he had that face, like holy shit.
You know? I can't remember what fight it is, Double A, but you remember that famous fight where the guy's moving back and forth, and you just see Mike's eyes darting back and forth on the guy.
Yeah.
It's like a very cool clip. You can look up and just like you're like you see. That shit is like intense. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's scary, man. I mean, and
even you try to be a hard man, you really do. But golly, when the guy has such a big reputation already, you know, you're just like, holy shit.
Yeah, I think even Spink says it where he's like, you know, I'd seen all the tapes, and I mean, I knew it's hard to not feel that coming across the way. You know what I mean? Like,
because you don't know what to expect. You know, the guy hits hard,
right?
You just don't know. Okay, well, how hard does he?
Yeah.
You know, and then when you get that first punch, you're probably like, holy shit. And the stories are true.
Yeah, and just in height, I mean, he looks shorter than all these guys. I mean, it's like, you know, you're like, oh man, like, you know, if you're a person that thinks like little guy versus big guy.
But see, the badass thing about Tyson in the 80s is that this guy would go for your body too. You know, that's a lot of things heavyweights don't do. And he would break you down bad, where he would punch you so hard that you would just lower your hands. You would go like this, just a little bit more, so you can uppercut you. And boom,
and that uppercut looked like fucking lightning. It was so fast. I mean, in the video you posted, Double A in the Friday Night Faithful, he misses one, and it just is like it's like a blink, like it's literally so quick. And it's funny again to refer back to the other. Not documentary, but like one man show again, The Undisputed Truth that Mike Tyson does himself. He does this. Did you see the part where he brings up the body on the? There's like a screen behind him, and it brings up a body of like the method he learned from Cuss, like the punching combo, and he has it like the head 1, 2, 3.
Yes, I do remember.
And he's kind of doing the motions, and he's like head, body, or no head. I think he's like cross, then he's like uppercut, then he's like spleen, liver or whatever. He does all the motions, and it's neat because it's like they do the body up there and the background, and it's numbered where he's supposed, and he's still throwing the combo at that age or whatever. Like, you're like, holy shit! I mean, like,
it worked. You know, you don't do something that doesn't work. You do it that keeps working.
Right,
and, man. Again, we just look at those man's fights. The way he would just boom, boom, boom,
and it's crazy. Like, I'm sure the muscle memory never really went away for him or whatever. But obviously,
so at this time, so at this time, even though he's dominating the world, he's dominating boxing. He's on the level probably of Michael Jordan at this time.
I would agree with that.
Personal life starts kind of coming in, he gets into a relationship with Robin Gibbons.
That's the most famous one. Although they said he was with other people too.
I guess she was big at that time.
Yeah, she was on the show Head of the Class. Okay. I remember seeing her around on 80s TV, but beautiful, you know what I mean? But they attached him to Naomi Campbell. Who was the other big name? It was another a big name that they attached him to at the time or whatever. So, and again, at this time, guys, the handlers are gone. They've passed away. And
Don King has swooped in.
And I think you guys kind of start to see, the literal kind of man-child emerging, because it's like, well, now the gloves are off. They talked to his limo driver a lot. The guy said he only ever drove for one person, and it was Mike Tyson. It was pretty much the whole 80s. Again, like a kind of really, cool talking Italian guy or whatever. And he's like, hey man, like now all of a sudden it was like he could do whatever he wanted. So, you know what I mean? Like, when you're not fighting,
you're 22, 23, 24, millions of dollars.
Right.
And the whole world is yours pretty much.
Yeah.
It's just, it really depends on you how you treat it,
Right. Right.
And so his personal life starts making headlines, more and more. Golly, he starts kind of, the first cracks you kind of see already in the, Mike Tyson without people kind of looking out for him.
Yeah, and your kind of classic stories start coming out about their home life and all that, shit that we don't need to know, whatever, because it ain't our fucking business. But
that's kind of what's funny too, is that it looked like when they were doing that interview with Mike, it looked like it was just a one-on-one.
Right.
And then all of a sudden she gets in
the spotlight.
Yeah. And Mike kind of looks confused. Like,
he
before she even kind of starts talking, he's like, what the hell?
Right. Well, he does Barbara Walters, right? Because obviously there's nothing but controversy and negativity around. Sorry, I feel like this light's distracting me here.
But I mean, it looked like it was just like a simple little piece.
That'd be too much.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, it looked like it was going to be a simple interview, just and she comes in,
and obviously Barbara Walters is going to ask the tough questions, and like, hey, the wife wanders in, and hell, even the producer, they talked to the producers at the time, and they're like, even we were shocked that it took that turn. She asked Mike, do you hit your wife? He said no. He's like, I have a temper, and I get angry. They even,
like he said, like he does this,
right? He'll shake her, grab her by the arm. He's like, I might have shaken her.
What did he see? She is pretty fucking small. She looked like she only weighed like 100, maybe not even that.
Especially compared to him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is its own dynamic in its way, and I don't want to spin it one way or the other because we don't know. We don't know. Nobody knows, whatever.
But she comes in and pretty much just paints a really bad look on Tyson. Bad. And Tyson looks just astonished. He looks bad. He looks like what the hell? He doesn't know where all this stuff is coming from, and he just has that look throughout. He doesn't say nothing,
right?
But he has that look on his face, like what the fuck's going on?
Yeah,
to almost anger. To
I mean, I didn't even see that. I just saw like bewilderment,
maybe embarrassment, right?
Yeah, embarrassment. You know what I mean? Because even the producers were like, "Man, we didn't expect the interview to take this turn at all." Because they even said. They show them like walking around the grounds of the house, like talking,
they look happy.
And they're hugging each other, and they go, man, we got the impression that like, though they might have had their difficulties, it was nothing more than what any couple has, and that when behind closed doors, they
a young couple,
right, you know what I mean, but nothing that's like whatever. Well, then it's almost like Robin Givens uses this opportunity. Barbara Walters is sitting on her fucking couch and the cameras are rolling to just kind of start saying all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like that pretty much he does hit her and that, he's a manic depressive. And like, it's like, man, like, they talk to so many people in the documentary that are kind of like, man, you don't put your fucking husband on blast like that. Or you just like, say all this shit.
It's kind of like almost like she wanted like a public opinion to be on her side because if she did divorce him, it would look good for her.
And I hate to say it, but that is very much the picture that I got as well.
Kind of what's going on, kind of not straight away too much, but it's kind of looking like that with the Johnny Depp thing, kind of like that,
Right. Where you kind of you set it up to get this disposition of quote unquote the public or whatever.
And then I thought they were going to bring it up, but they didn't, which they did talk about in Undisputed, is that, he came home and he found her with the guy.
Yeah.
And they were driving out quick, like, before he could try to come home, but he stopped them.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be Brad Pitt.
Brad
Pitt was anything. I guess he was on that show too. And it's kind of really he implies heavily that she was cheating on him with Brad Pitt.
What's so funny is that they show, he puts up a picture of Brad Pitt in the Undisputed Tree.
Yeah, he does.
And it's this young Brad Pitt.
Yeah, that's where he would probably know him from.
I mean, but can you imagine? Like, I mean, I'm sure Brad Pitt even then knew who her fucking husband was.
No, he does. He goes like, and he does a really good, great Brad Pitt impression. He's like, oh no, not a face. Please, like he's scared. Like the way Mike described it, Brad Pitt was like scared shitless.
I mean,
holy shit, because you have the heavyweight champion. At this time, the heavyweight champion was considered like, wow, this is the guy. You do not want to get into a fist fight with the world heavyweight champion.
No, I mean, and if you're Brad Pitt's age at that time, you've been watching this guy destroy fucking grown men, and you're like this skinny actor guy.
This ain't Tyler Durden. Okay, this is Brad Pitt.
This isn't even stuntman Brad Pitt from Once Upon a Time that beats up Bruce Lee.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
No.
You don't want those fucking problems. So you know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this double A. I don't think he was cheating. Maybe he was just running lines with her because I don't think Brad Pitt would be that fucking stupid. Like that's a suicide death wish, brother.
Yeah,
are you kidding? I'd be like, no, we're not going to your house.
No.
We will run lines at the studio or some shit.
Do you know who your husband is?
Yeah, I'm not trying to fucking die at that man's hands at that time when he was a legit, true fucking killing guys. I mean, shit. Who's the guy they show over and over again? Double A. He was a fighter, right? That he fucking broke his face and all that. The eye socket, the swollen eye. He was another fighter that he fought, and that Tyson was like, man, this guy sucked. You know what I mean? Like I beat his ass and I beat him again.
I think it was Bruno.
Yeah, that's
Bruno.
That might have been him.
He's like a big English fighter, and that guy always swelled up.
That wasn't. It was the other guy with the Jerry curl. He had a little bit of the Jerry curl hair.
Oh, that dude.
Guy.
I don't know that guy.
Yeah,
that was like a scrub guy.
That was some scrub, whatever. But they had several confrontations, and they showed this guy's face like literally fucking broken. Which Mike also broke his hand punching him because this was like outside of the ring or whatever. But I mean, just crazy shit. So that pretty much that's what happens.
This is what's going on while he's dominating the heavyweight division. The personal life stuff kind of starts coming around, and he's starting to become more and more a loose cannon, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. He's it's just a downward spiral, man. The shit with her, they say that one day they were throwing her shit out of the house.
Yeah, that he was just throwing a lot of shit. It wasn't just her shit. It was just like everything. Like I think it was that driver. Yeah, they were like, let's just throw shit out of here, and that became like a big incident. That made news.
There was never not cameras on him. They even talk about one day he was doing one of his runs at 4 a.m. and this is he threw the Walkman at the paparazzi guy who made a lawsuit, of course, because everyone's trying to fucking get a piece of this guy or whatever, and
because now you're like, okay, this is something that we, the news, can go after.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is something that we like. We like to see when the guy starts, even though he becomes successful, we like to see him get pissed off, and do crazy shit, which is weird. It's weird that we're like that in America, that, when one person's very successful, we kind of always want to see the bad sides of that person.
You know what's so funny is that in watching this stuff, it made me think about, I thought about Chadwick Boseman a little bit, where I was like, man, like how fucking awesome for him that, at Black Panther, when it was out, it was like him at the top. Yeah. Could have been easily, any little thing they could have latched on, but it never happened for him. So, I mean, like, I think that's so great. You know what I mean? Like, not that it, in my opinion, again, this is my opinion, the opinion of CM Chuck here, that it was necessarily all Tyson's fault or whatever, because, you know what I mean? Like I said, it was like almost like the fates weren't allowing for him to continue to grow into being possibly the greatest fighter of all time, because he lost everyone that really cared about him, that had around him. And
a trainer is huge. Mm-hmm. And once you get rid of your good trainers, you can see the quality of your fighting go down or go up. It just really depends. And
well, what about 2AA? The guy, again, if you watch this, guys, you'll see kind of what a man-child Mike is. I'm not saying he doesn't know right from wrong or whatever. What I'm just saying is that,
guys, if we're 23, 24, we're multimillionaires that everyone catered to, we probably would have a huge fucking ego ourselves.
Yeah.
And probably do a lot of bad stuff ourselves.
Right. And how about this? Let's say this. What if he did love Robin Givens and thought that this was his loving, trusting wife?
He thought so. She was very good looking. She was a really good looking woman that you could hang on to.
Right. And maybe he thinks, oh, this is going to be the next person in my life that's going to take care of me and actually look out for me or whatever. And then, like on Barbara Walters, she fucking turns on him. You know what I mean? Like it's like a knife in your back. And that's the face that I got double A from. It was like just dumbfounded, like.
That's what I'm saying. It's embarrassment, dumbfounded.
Deer in headlights look, man. Like
you just don't. You're not supposed to expect that from your partner,
right? Right. You know what I mean? Like saying this is, and like I said, say what you want. That some people say that maybe Mike, is not smart or whatever. But it seemed to me that it was clear as day that he understood the ramifications of what was happening in that moment. It just continued for their relationship to spiral out of control, and she eventually files for divorce. And I think, you know, they kind of talk about she takes a lot of the money. You know what I mean? Of course, that was her mother. Her mother was living with them.
Yeah, of
and
course.
she was fucking obviously in it to win too. You know, so then that happens. So that's like a negative. And then the next thing is the kind of major one, right? Double A, the pageant and all that.
Well, first, was it before? No, it's after. It's after what obviously was the biggest upset.
Yeah, it's after. Oh, it's right around that time actually.
No, because that happens pretty quick. He gets arrested
right after that fight.
So again, with all the handlers down, he's still dominating, but it's not as good. And he gets next contender. It's Buster Douglas. A name everyone in boxing knows. Not necessarily because the guy's good, just because it becomes the biggest upset in boxing history.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Buster Douglas, they said that when he was on, that he could actually have been a really good heavyweight, but he's just one of those fighters that never really took anything seriously.
Yeah.
But this is a chance against Mike Tyson, so he trains super hard. He starts moving, boxing. Tyson gets too much.
He said he wasn't even training.
Wasn't training, just partying, staying out till 2-3 in the morning. Because he figures he's like, this dude, he's just a journeyman,
Yeah. And they said everyone thought that it was going to be in the bag. Like it was like, oh, we're going to get to watch Tyson like knock another guy out.
There is a little controversy though, and there's not too many people that talk about it, but he does knock down Buster Douglas.
Yeah.
And it does say that he is down for like almost 10 seconds, but for whatever reason, they don't count.
Yeah.
Because even if the referee doesn't count, there's always someone on the outside that's supposed to be starting to count once the guy's down. There's always, 1 and 2. And then when the referee comes in, that's when, he's supposed to tell the referee, okay, we're at 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a long count. He even counts in the Undisputed.
And the Undisputed Truth. Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't know that at all.
I didn't know that either because a lot of people kind of really gloss over.
Yeah, it's not in the documentary, but Mike brings it up and he says it was in the 8th, and he shows the video and he counts, and the audience starts to count with him, and they get up to 13. He goes, I did knock him out and down in the 8th, and it was a 13-second count, which I'm like, man, what a change that would have been to fucking history, because that now he probably felt like he was losing in his personal life, and now he's lost in his professional life.
Well, not just that too, but so that maybe he should have won, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Buster is kicking his ass. This is the first time, anyone's actually, landing punches on Tyson. Right. I mean, he just does not look good in this fight. And Buster is tearing him up. He's using the reach like a classic big man.
Yeah.
He's using the reach to keep him at bay. He's just fucking laying into him until we get to the 10th round where Mike's, he looks bad. By the 10th round, he looks terrible.
Yeah. And
Buster finishes him off, man. He gives him a nasty combo and knocks him out, and Tyson, loses his mouth guard, and that's that famous, where he's all like
trying to find it.
He puts it in his
probably
mouth
would have made the count had he had not gone for the mouthpiece.
I don't know. He looked out of it.
He did look pretty beat up.
Yeah. And, Buster becomes the undisputed champion, man.
Yeah. One of the things they said in the documentary that we watched again, Mike Tyson, the knockout on ABC. Sorry, I got an itch, guys. I know this is not looking good on camera, but is that Buster Douglas lost his mom right before, and that he was going to use this to draw from, like, this was going to be for his mom. And so it's like, damn, the cards are all swinging in the other kind of way or whatever, like behind the scenes.
But you know what? I mean, it wasn't too long after that. He, it's Holyfield. He challenges Holyfield. Buster Douglas, and Holyfield knocks his ass out in 4 rounds.
Yeah,
so
I was gonna
Buster
say.
Douglas is not by any means a great boxer, anything,
Right.
Evander takes care of him quick.
Yeah. They talked to Buster Douglas in the documentary as well.
They do,
so
which I was like, okay, cool.
Get to hear it directly from him.
Cool.
He seemed pretty proud. Made it sound like it was his.
That was the biggest.
Sure.
That's still the biggest upset.
They talked to other people too throughout in the video, and they say, literally the shot heard around the world. People were calling other people to spread the word by phone. No social media, guys, and it gets out there that, like, man, Mike Tyson's been knocked out. Guys, we're right up against our second break, so let's take that break real quick and continue the conversation about Mike Tyson, the knockout, with you guys on just another Thursday night early edition. Guys, if you're hanging out with us here on our second attempt at going live, we appreciate you because we know that it was confusing and daunting to start out.
I don't know if you remember, but we kind of did that too with Lewis when he was fighting Hasim Rockman. We were playing basketball outside.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't even watching the fight because we were like, oh, Lewis is going to take care of it. And then, my mom caught it. She's like, Lennox, your dad said Lennox Lewis got knocked out. We stopped playing basketball and we all ran inside.
Had to watch on replay.
Yeah,
I do remember that. I forgot about that.
We're like, what the hell? And he knocks out Lewis. Like, Lewis is like knocked out, because at this time, Lewis did the same thing. He wasn't training. He was doing Oceans either 12 or 13.
That's right.
He wasn't taking his fight seriously at all. And yeah, Hasim Rockman got lucky and knocked him out. Now, the difference though is that Tyson, for whatever reason, never got his rematch with Buster, which you would have thought would have happened immediately.
Yeah.
Not Buster going straight to Holyfield, but that never happened. So he never got that return fight where Lewis did get that return fight. And he did kill Hasim Rockman.
Mm-hmm. That time.
And you could tell the difference too, because Lewis was like super laser focused.
That one I remember.
And he wanted to knock him out.
Yeah, he did.
This wasn't Lewis playing around with jabbing. No. This was him coming in and boom.
Oh, with a for sure. Sorry, guys. The lighting is once again weird for us tonight. That's just me. But
it's just another Thursday night.
Just another Thursday night, man. I'm telling you, it continues. Double A. Let's check out these comments.
Yeah.
Tell me what you got.
Okay, Rich says, where would you see Tyson now if he didn't go to prison or have all this controversy? Well, see, the thing though is like, it's not necessarily even like the prison. It's the handlers, right? That's like the thing that always seems to be the thing. The handlers, die, and then Don King comes in, and then Tyson probably starts getting all these hangers on. Like, I can do this better for you. I can do this better for you. And it's golly, again, you got to separate that from your professional. His boxing skills are not what they were just a year ago. From when he got with Buster Douglas.
I feel like nothing is really said, Double A, about who his trainers were at this time. Was it
just a joke? Like, they even showed it. I think I don't even remember if it's Undisputed or not, but they show like during the Douglas fight, the guy has like a bag of water, like dip, in the ice. It's not even like a real thing, and he's pushing it against like Mike's head. It's like a bag of water for Mike Tyson. That's what you're supposed to keep the swelling down.
Right.
It's terrible. It was horrible. That's why I said that's when he kind of just started going in, just kind of relying on his intimidation and his power.
Yeah, he's probably just going based on the skills that he'd learned previously, and that's all he really had. Rich also says, I would love to see him some type of trainer or coach with some of the heavyweights, but I think it's bad rap. Yeah.
You know what though? If you look at him now, he looks super focused on his boxing. If you've seen the clips, I kind of retweeted too, where he's like, where he's still kind of showing his speed and his combo.
Yeah.
I think Mike would actually be a pretty good trainer.
There's that famous footage where he's helping someone on a set. And he's showing he's 52 at that time. I'm not sure of his exact age right now.
I think that's about right. No, I think it's about right. Yeah.
Man, he's going so quick. And people were like, holy shit. Like, this guy
he looks like almost like the Tyson of the 80s. Like, he's kind of drawing that kind of like, still remembering that kind of training that he did, the 80s Tyson. I definitely think that there's guys out there now that could learn a lot from his ass. If I was a boxer, I'd be like, hey, Mike, can you come over and, show me what you think.
For sure. And I think that he would be probably very happy to give that knowledge because it seemed like he took to boxing so much that he became a bit of a boxing historian himself, like such a fan of it.
And that's the thing I've always heard, that he was always very big on the history. Like, Dempsey's like his guy. Yeah. He loves Dempsey,
I like in the Undisputed Truth, he makes a reference to what wrestler does he reference? He references one of the wrestlers in there. He says, oh man, I'm going to end up being like, I'm doing things like, damn it, it's escaping me right now, whatever. But it was cool because he made a wrestling reference, and I was like, all right.
Which he is also a big, I think he's like a big fan of Bruno.
That's who he mentions, Bruno Sammartino. That's who he mentions.
Yeah, because obviously, he's in Brooklyn, so that's all WWF territory. So
so I agree with you on that, Rich. He would have been great, and still would be great.
He could, trainer,
for sure. What does he say next?
If you were boxers during that time and you had to fight Tyson, and what would you do to defeat him? Seeing his losses, what would be your style? Man, that's the thing, because
he didn't have any losses till that Buster Douglas fight,
and that's already when he's already like the Tyson now that you see now?
You know, and this is a good question, Rich, because what do you think, Double A? It's not like Douglas exposed a weakness. I think he went in there with the mindset of like, I'm gonna just hopefully, in a sense, get lucky, which he did. Because I don't think there really was a strategy.
My thing would not be to try to slugfest.
No,
fuck no.
Maybe like you said, fight tall,
yeah,
keep him away.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like you have to look at what your strengths are and do that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like for
just
me and Double A, that wouldn't
just,
work for us because we're about the same size.
It'd really just be points. Just try to win on points. Mm-hmm. That's all I could say.
Keep away from him.
Keep away.
You know what I mean. Keep away from him. I mean, like, I don't know how many.
You don't want to get into a slugfest with this.
No,
guy.
You know, you want to avoid the power. Maybe a lot of feinting, trying to feint. You know what I mean.
Protect your body as much as you can. You know,
maybe like a Mayweather strategy.
You would almost have to.
Running away. A lot of, you know, I don't know. I, you know what I mean. It's funny, right? Like, we would both be in the heavyweight division right now at our current weights or whatever. You're probably closer to his size. What are you?
5'7",
5'7". Okay,
yeah.
so a little bit shorter.
It's my brother.
Yeah,
that's about his size.
You 5'10".
Yeah.
Will or boy? Oh yeah, boy.
Mm-hmm.
So then, So then that would be, you know, okay.
So
the size is there. You know what I mean, right? The picture.
You can tell with basketball how boy was just like towering.
Yeah,
right?
The big. He always seems so much bigger than the rest of us. Yeah. But yeah, well, my weight is probably there. Whatever. I'm only like 5'4", so it would be like
boys probably
really.
I would even say he's probably at his weight too.
Yeah, and he said he fought around. Tyson fought around that 220. So yeah, man, it's tough, man. It'd be tough to come up with a viable strategy for him, especially at that time.
So much power in that body.
Right,
yeah.
Right. He broke Razor Ruddock's jaw.
Razor Ruddock. The two times they fought.
Yeah.
That was another good name. Razor Ruddock.
What a cool name.
Razor Ruddock. Donovan Ruddock was a good heavyweight. He beat Bruce Eldon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was another good heavyweight. Beat Frank Bruno. You know, another good heavyweight. Trevor Berbick. You know, I mean, Tyson beat names. He beat like legit heavyweight names.
It's funny what you got me thinking about was when we talked about the video game thing. You know what I mean? It's like I think that Douglas got a video game. We would have been on Sega by that time out of the Tyson win, but just that one. And then the next one that got the game was they made that Real Deal. Holyfield's Real Deal Boxing was the other Sega game. If I'm correct, somebody really check on that one. It might just be whoever's still out there. I know Rich is here. Thank you, Rich, for hanging in there. Rich says
Tyson. If Tyson and Douglas had a rematch, who wins? Tyson.
Oh, definitely. Tyson. He looked pretty bad in that documentary, Rich. Check it out if you got Hulu, man.
He said if the rematch happened in her prime.
Oh,
Tyson.
Yeah,
Tyson.
all the way.
He'd be more focused, and I think he can. Obviously, he showed he can knock him down. Right. That was obvious.
Yeah.
You know, and long enough where Douglas was pretty fucking dazed about it.
Around that time when Tyson gets that first win, between that first title between Berbick and Spinks, I mean, that's a pretty premier.
Well, not just that,
Tyson,
but then, after he loses, Tyson does have a series of bouts where he goes back on his winning streak. Again, he beats Ruddock twice. Mm-hmm. He beats Bruno. He beats, all these other guys. He does kind of go back to winning again.
Nice.
So, I mean, I think if he would have fought Douglas, but at that point, it was a waste of time because Evander
he was already dismantled.
Yeah, and Buster probably went back to probably being Buster. And,
I wouldn't have made that fight for him if I was in type of promoter because there's no money.
If he didn't have the belts, there's no reason to go after Buster Douglas.
Unless it's just like to prove something. But good question, Rich. Comparing to boxing, then do you like what boxing has become, the fighters and stuff? Oof, Double A, what you speak on that?
I mean, it's not too bad. I mean, we've seen a lot of the modern fights. They're not bad. I mean, the welterweights are always fun. The middleweights are always fun.
There's good fighters. To me, there's a lot of other things going on in boxing that make it bad right now. I mean, like we've heard that the quality of fighters has gone down because guys want to go to UFC. Guys aren't really training in boxing anymore. They want to go where, quote unquote, where the money is and where the publicity is. And UFC, I think, is the more popular sport right now. But also, too, I guess you could say if you don't want to get hurt, you could try the professional wrestling route too, or whatever, which I think is very difficult to make it in.
Well, see, the thing is too, is there is still an audience for boxing.
Agree 100%.
Canelo sold out Dallas Stadium.
Yep.
I mean, that's no small feat.
I totally agree with you on that. For sure.
So I mean, and boxing isn't like worldwide. They only fight either Vegas,
Mhm.
here in Texas, sometimes depending on if it's a Mexican fighter,
Sure.
you know, or New York. You know,
Sure.
I mean, it's not like they're worldwide either.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the crowds are always pretty damn big. There's always big crowds when it's like a big fight. There's always still big crowds. You know, the Wilder Fury fight had almost 10,000.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
it seems like there's interest because I mean we saw Premiere came up and the Dazin or whatever it was. Like people are trying to, and I don't know if it's the right people, but you got Snoop Dogg on commentary. But
Eddie Hearn, that's the guy that's kind of pissed me off right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's the top promoter right now. You know, so
yeah,
he's kind of like the one that kind of waited on Joshua and Wilder, and you know, both of them lost already. So that whole draw about that, kind of diminished a lot. You've
got that situation with Tyson and Douglas too, where it's like you didn't really need it.
But I mean, shit, Tim. I mean, we saw, the trilogy of Gotti Ward. You know, we saw Marco Antonio Barrera, Eric Morales. You know, we saw Juan Manuel Marquez and Pacquiao. You know, the 4 series that they had. You know, I mean, golly, there were still a lot of great fights. Lennox Lewis. You know. Lomachenko, the badass fighter when he's on. You know, we saw Miguel Cotto. Cotto was
great
badass,
Cotto fights. Even Triple G and Triple G and his fights with Canelo were good too. Solid. Those were solid, good fights that I enjoyed.
Yeah. The Mayweather, despite I don't like him very much, his boxing fights are always drawing over 1 million. You know, always easy.
Yeah.
You know,
Even the stupid YouTuber guy thing that happened at
gross over 1 million.
If anything, it maybe creates interest for boxing, which is good for boxing, you know what I mean? But obviously a fucking just a circus type fight or whatever. But again, if it generates and garners an interest in boxing itself, then that's always good. I think that Rich, the sport needs certain types of guys. I mean, like McGregor doing it, wasn't really great, but McGregor is almost kind of the kind of guy you need like that character or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
even now they're kind of hurting a little bit without even him. They had Ronda Rousey, they had McGregor.
Right. Those were the 2 names.
They had Anderson Silva.
Right. Now it's like, okay, now you've got people in UFC, but I mean, it's like, are they kind of in a sense marketable? And that's the big thing, is that you want to push this person out in front of the business and say, hey, be the face, take the ball and run with it. I mean, like,
you're seeing UFC fighters go to wrestling. It was like, wow, I can make more money in wrestling and not even hurt myself.
And not get as hurt, not get as beat up. Yeah. So you got to ask yourself, it's like, who's doing that in boxing right now? It's like, really nobody. I mean, like, it's been kind of quiet.
It's been quiet, but you know what? Again, it just really depends. You just need a few boxers, come in.
I liked Wilder because, he kind of had some presence, you know what I mean? The trash talking, the mask. It was like, all right, like you got some character to you, you know what I mean? That's going to add and draw attention to the sport, you know what I mean? And maybe,
it did. It really has. I mean, him and Fury, they're going to go at it again. I'm pretty sure it's going to be more buzz as the weeks come along. So, I mean, that's going to be another big fight,
Now, what about the second part of Rich's question there, Double A, where it talks about styles? How do you feel about that specifically? Is there,
see, that's always the thing, like I love Mexican fighters because Mexican fighters just don't give a shit. They will go in and just start punching. You've seen it, the wars, so it's just really depends. Like, I hate Mayweather's style.
Right.
I've always hated that style. Everyone always says that's great defense. That's just fucking boring. I've never liked Mayweather even before he became big all of a sudden. I don't even know how he became so big.
Yeah.
The guy was always a boring fighter. Roy Jones, I loved Roy Jones.
Yeah.
Man, when that guy in his prime was, that guy was another beautiful guy to watch.
For sure.
He would just make people look stupid bad,
Yeah.
He was the last guy to beat Bernard, before Bernard went on his whole streak.
Yeah.
Title defenses, Yeah. And
then
there's guys like Bernard.
I like Hopkins.
And then there's guys like Bernard. He was a great boxer, but he could be a little boring too.
Right.
So I mean, it just depends on the boxer, really.
And they call it the sweet science, for a reason. I know it's the art of not getting hit, but you know what I mean? There's guys that did it with a good mix, you know what I mean? So let's see what Rich says next here. It says, guys, for us, I think Tyson wasn't taking Douglas seriously. Didn't he fire his coach before the fight? I'm not sure about that.
I'm not really too sure. I'm pretty bad at knowing his handlers after a while.
Afterwards.
Yeah, so.
That's a good question, though, Rich. He said, who are y'all fans of? I like Triple G and Fury as fighters.
I actually told my brother I wasn't a huge fan of Canelo, but I'm becoming a huge fan of Canelo because he's taking on names and he's beating them. Like I was like really impressed because Billy Joe Saunders was a really good boxer, and man, Canelo just made him look like shit.
Yeah,
Yeah. So Canelo is like getting there, man. He's beating people, and is not even looking hurt. So
No,
Triple G, I love Triple G.
Triple G.
I love Lomachenko.
Lomachenko's still badass.
Fury, he's funny. His boxing fight, I don't know about his style.
Yeah.
But he's funny. I love that there's a guy out there that's fucking clowning around like that. Especially at heavyweight.
For sure.
That a lot of people do view as the number one heavyweight, not Joshua. They usually view Fury as the guy. So
yeah. Sometimes I think about it like this, Rich. Like, who would I buy a T-shirt of right now? Like, I would buy a Triple G T-shirt. I would buy a Canelo T-shirt. For me, I'd be like, that's me. Like, I'm like, I would rep them that much that I would get one. At his time, I liked Manny Pacquiao, quite a bit. We went to go watch him fight live. Me and Double A,
was fucking monster.
You know what I mean? So yeah, in their time, you know what I mean. So definitely those guys or whatever. You know what I mean? Let's see what else here. Rich says, what do you think about going to Boy Wayne and come back?
Please no.
Yeah,
he looked bad towards the end already. And no.
This is the equivalent to me of when people get mad sometimes at like the wrestling business when they're like, oh, you just bring in old guys for the name and the marketability, and it's like, well, you know what I mean, like, does that help the sport? I don't think so. Like, if anything, why not get better people out there looking for these guys?
But this is funny because Tyson did show them that if you are a name and you actually do take it seriously, you can actually sell pay-per-views like Tyson did.
Yeah.
So
yeah, totally, man, totally. And Rich says, now Jake Paul says he would like to fight Tyson.
Jake Paul keeps saying he wants to fight everyone.
Yeah, this guy clearly, I mean, I don't understand. He's already got his YouTube fame. It's like, now you're trying to cross over. I mean.
Yeah, and the Mayweather thing didn't help. Now everyone's like, oh, he survived 10 rounds with Mayweather. So he's serious. He's a serious threat. I'm like, yeah, anyone can last 10 rounds.
Which the little bit that I saw, it did look like he clocked him really hard. Some points,
I'm pretty sure Mayweather didn't even train. I'm pretty damn sure.
Oh, right. And it was a couple of points where it looked like he was kind of holding him up. So you know what I mean? I was like, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean?
That's what. Yeah.
And then Rich says, shit, July 10th, McGregor and Poirier 3. Hopefully, is it going? Yeah, I'll watch it. I like Hunter, and I think he's super entertaining. He is like a wrestling promoter's dream or whatever, or probably a boxing promoter. So, I think that'd be, I'll watch that. I've watched almost everything he's done. I was watching his fights when he wasn't. Yeah. You didn't have to pay for them. Yeah. So they were like on an FS1 or whatever the hell it was. And I'm not even the hugest UFC fan, but I was like, yeah, there for it. Mario Delgado in the house says, good evening, boys. Good evening, sir. So glad that you're here. We're talking tonight, Mario, about the recent Mike Tyson documentary, The Knockout. Did you watch it on ABC? 2 parts, really, really great. And so we're calling it tonight, Mario, the baddest man on the planet.
Go back to the comments, sir.
Yeah, and so, guys, if you need to get anything like that, make sure that you shop Authority Comics on Facebook. Some great new graded books have been popping up on there. They make me and Double A's eyes bug out, right? I'm like, oh, man.
Go back to the comments, sir.
But let's get back into some comments here.
Last one.
Here, Mario says,
Manny versus Spence is going to be the fight. Watch. Oh, okay.
Okay. Very nice. Very nice. I'm there for that. Well, let's get back into the audio recording version portion.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that'll be a good one to watch for sure. Hopefully everyone's training and getting, in their best fighting conditions. So we want to hear that. But all right, Double A, you ready to get back into the topic of tonight, the baddest man on the planet, and the documentary that we watched, again, The Knockout on ABC, 2 parts, about an hour each, about the kind of life and times of one Mike Tyson. So thank you guys for hanging out. We are back here again, and we're talking more people popping in. Again, you know how we do it here on normally on a Friday night, but tonight on a Thursday night for our second week in a row due to summer obligations and for Double A dad duties. But guys, we're talking tonight about the great documentary that we watched. Again, like I said, the Knockout, Mike Tyson, The Knockout on ABC, 2 parts. It focuses on his fight career, but it also focuses quite a bit on
both the personal and the professional life.
The personal and the professional. So we're right up at the point where he's now lost.
Yeah. So now now it's he's he's winning fights again, and it's kind of getting close to Holyfield, the big showdown. And it's funny because there was a poster that Ray has where it was already advertising Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield. That was going to be the big fight. And then that's when that whole event happened. Which I didn't even know there was an event like that. It was like an all black event. I forgot what it's called.
Almost like a convention, but
it's like superstars here, like major names are at this place. Will Smith is there, Mike Tyson is there. Spike Lee, I believe, was there.
Yeah,
just huge names.
I mean, the way I thought about it was pretty much like a convention, but that celebrated like all of the African American influentials at the time. So if you were, I guess, big in music, movies, TV,
Jesse Jackson.
Jackson was there. Yeah, I think Al Sharpton. They showed pretty much everybody was there. But this was a thing that happened in Indianapolis, and there was also like a Miss Black America beauty pageant that was going on. So lots of beautiful girls there, and there's lots of footage of Tyson hanging around these girls. I did want to mention one thing also though that happened. That he mentions, and we watched the in my prep, I watched Mike Tyson's Undisputed Truth, directed by Spike Lee. I think it was on either HBO Max or Prime, one of those two. It's on one of those two. But he says that shortly after the Douglas loss, that his sister Denise died, and that she was one of the main prominent female figures in his life that helped kind of raise him in the absence of his mother, who was, had issues with drugs and a bunch of other things. I mean, she just was not really there for him, raising them or whatever. So she died. So, again, the kind of trend continues of anyone that maybe had any chance of bringing Mike out of the things that he was in, he's losing them. You know what I mean? So it's like, that sucks, whatever. But anywho, back to this event in Indianapolis and
I mean, there's just like eye candy everywhere. And he's just like, wow, I mean, again, this guy has an aura about him. He's a heavyweight champion, he was, and, he's just a big name. He's Iron Mike. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't get anyone bigger at this event probably than Mike Tyson.
No. Not at that time.
And I guess he's pretty vulgar in what he says, I mean, everyone says that he was like, he pointing at him and says, I want to fuck you, I want to fuck you, I want to fuck you, they're all like, giggling, whatever. Then apparently he catches the eye of like that 18-year-old, Desiree. Right. And they show like a picture where he's like with them. It's like a big group picture, and she's like looking at him like all like, lovingly. Yeah,
she's kind of got her focus on him for sure.
And I don't know. They say he grabs people, kind of grabs their asses, all this stuff. But Desiree, something about her really attracts it to him.
This is like the early '90s, right?
Yes, and they go out, and apparently, that's where. He rapes her later that night. Apparently she said she didn't want, that's all she wanted was just a night out with him. He's like, I'm expecting, me and you to have sex, blah, blah, blah. Right. And, you actually hear a phone call, I want to report a rape, and, who did it, and everything.
Now, I don't want to cast aspersions, but I probably will. So, this is a part, and I wrote down some questions that I wanted to ask Double A since we both watched the documentary separately or whatever, But from everything that they document that everything was consensual, even like into entering the room. Then it's just them two. Then it becomes her word against his, and she says the rape. Now they play the 911 call. And again, I'm just going to put this out there. It didn't sound calm, right? Very calm, no crying, very clear, very like.
I thought so too.
That was a little bit weird to me. You know what I mean?
I thought so too. And again, I don't know. No one knows. No, what happened. Mm-hmm. Maybe he did. Who knows? But I mean, the call was very calm. I don't know. Again, I don't know.
And then there's the documentary does do, I think, a fair job of trying to talk to different people that were around the event at the time. They talked to one gal that was like, she's the one kind of telling you all the stuff Double A said about how Mike was and the things he was saying. Then they say that there was another woman who they didn't talk to, but it's like known that she says that she was friends with this Desiree, the one that the accuser, and that and that she told her, she was like, this guy's dumb. You saw what Robin Givens got out of him, you know what I mean? Like, you know, all you got to do is say this or whatever, say he did this to you or whatever. And so it sounds
but then you know, you have other people saying that no, Desiree wasn't like that. You know, she was a very sweet girl, 18-year-old girl, you know. So
right.
Again, you know, you just don't know.
And I know, and then they even show clips of like she gets interviewed later on, right? Double A.
Like they show the old interview.
Yeah, the old interview.
She declined to do.
She did an interview in this one. Yeah.
You know, I don't blame her. You know,
right?
That did happen.
Right.
You know?
But even in that interview, and again,
I know it always seems like she's calm.
Very
I don't know,
nonchalant about it. Not like it's like. I mean, I imagine that is extremely traumatic, and that you would just, you know, the mere memory or mention of it would just, you know. And again, people react differently. People deal with trauma differently.
Yeah.
But either way, and it's so funny because there's kind of a contrasting comment that happens earlier in the documentary. There's a gentleman talking, and he says, you know, this is when Mike's on his rise, the meteoric rise, and he says, you know, 3 black men ruled the world at that time, or whatever, or you could even say 3 men ruled the world at that time. And he goes, it was Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, and Mike Tyson. He goes, it was just about which Mike you wanted to be, and it was a very cool comment. Well, then later, you know, Tyson has a trial. He gets a shitty lawyer that
hired by Don King.
Don King hires. This guy's like a tax attorney. He's not a real lawyer. He's not a real trial lawyer. It's funny. Mike makes a joke in the Undisputed Truth where he's like, fuck, he hires me this tax attorney. He's like, I need him now. He's like, where's that guy at now? He's like, now I'm in the tax trouble, you know. But it doesn't get him a lawyer that you would need for this rape trial.
And who knows what Don King was thinking? You know, maybe he was holding some vendetta against Tyson. Who knows? Because I think I think it shows in the doc that they were starting to have problems themselves.
Yeah.
Right before this trial, and I think Don King even says like supposedly that, oh, now you need me. You know, okay, I'll help you, you know.
Yeah, and not only that, too, but you know, part of me thinks maybe Don King just was like, oh, I know this guy, I'll get a cheap rate from him or whatever, saving $1. But my other part says, like, as greedy as that motherfucker was, like, why would you let your cash cow go to jail? Like damn, I'm Don King, like that's pretty fucking dumb. Well,
honestly, I think because their relationship was going downhill.
That would make sense.
And he was probably like, okay, let me try to make this guy look good, so then when he comes out of jail, people are going to want to see this guy again. Yeah. And I'll be there for him.
Yeah. Because he does go back into Don King's arms afterwards.
I'll make even more money on his comeback fights.
Shit.
I wouldn't be surprised if you was already thinking like that already.
That's pretty fucking diabolical. I mean, you know.
Don King is not a good person.
No.
Don King, you know, he killed someone. He killed a man himself.
Yeah. Beat him to death. They talk about that in the documentary.
This guy ripped off Muhammad Ali. You know, this guy ripped off Roberto Duran, you know, probably Chavez, you know, he ripped off Tyson, you know, I mean, this guy was...
And still alive to this day, huh?
And still alive, still kicking, you know, and it's even funny because he even has like a cameo in The Devil's Advocate where he's friends with the fucking devil. You know? Which
I'm sure he was like, yeah, I'll do that scene. Yeah, I don't care how that plays out. Fuck it, how that looks. Yeah, I fucking forgot about that. They're at a Roy Jones fight.
Yeah, they're at a Roy Jones and he sees... You know, Al Pacino, you know, is supposed to be the devil, and he sees him, and they all embrace, like, yeah, I've made a deal with him before, and he's been a good friend to me.
Isn't there another story about him supposedly being shot in the head and living through that?
Yes.
What the fuck? Yes. I mean, rarely on this show do we just say someone is a straight up bad person.
So, you know, the whole court thing is going, and he even gets Customado's partner. She goes with Tyson a few times, you know, and each time Mike would leave the courtroom, you can just see his face. It's just more and more where you can see where he's losing. He knows he's losing. He's not having a swagger, a confident swagger. This guy's like,
no,
fuck, I'm going to jail. Like he has that look like if any of us we're about to go to jail, like we're going to jail.
Like it's already like a done deal because he also says not only does he have the shit lawyer, but they talked about the jury. And I do think that this is a factor because although it was a black man and a black woman, they talk about like the jury was primarily white. I don't think that they
But
did very
again,
good jury selection,
remember,
fairness.
I think a lawyer is the one that kind of picks.
Well, right, yeah, they
Remember
do have a say in some of the
Yes,
jury
it's even,
selections.
it does end jury duty. They'll pick the people that they want, you know. So,
and at this time, people are protesting, and they're there for Mike.
I was really surprised. I was really surprised how much support he had from women and men.
Women and men.
Golly, it was a lot of support for Mike Tyson.
Again, I think that there is an aspect of, again, I want to say the man-child thing or whatever, and maybe kind of lured into a bad situation.
I mean, at this point, he's already kind of already in his later 20s, I would imagine. So
yeah, sure. But we all know how the story goes, guys. Mike gets convicted. So he is a convicted rapist, and he goes to jail. He gets sentenced to, I think, 6 years.
6 years. He does 3.
He serves 3. And then when he gets out, it's you think he's going to get away from Don King? But
no, he's right there waiting to pick up Mike.
Well, he really doesn't have anyone else, though, right?
He doesn't. So Don King comes. He's like, "Hey, I can make you money real quick. Okay, I need money. Let's go." Yeah. So, and they talked about like while he was in jail, he became a Muslim, which played pretty heavily. I don't know if he's still into that. I don't, he doesn't really show like he used to. Yeah. You can always tell when he used to, know. And his comeback fights, they start bringing those on. People are still interested.
I remember that very first one, right? I remember like it was the Italian guy, right? The white dude,
Kevin McNeely.
Yeah. Irish is what it was. Yeah, and everybody was like, "Man, is he still gonna have it?" It was like a big deal.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they're like, "Wow, it's crazy." They're like, "We don't know if a guy that had been convicted of rape and came out today would have that same effect like that."
No,
and they make a point like when Tyson came out, it was like a hero's welcome, like a free man had just came out almost. So we start the comeback. We start the second fight. The second rounds of boxing. He's doing very well. He wins the titles back. He wins like 2 titles back real quick. And finally, we're getting the showdown between him and Evander. Finally, this big match that was supposed to have happened in the early 90s. Yeah. Now it's going to happen, and it's for like belts. I think Evander has 1, Tyson has 1. So, finally it's going to happen. And man, Evander beats him that first one. Yeah. Bad.
Yeah. A clear
victory. He scores a TKO in the 11th round over Mike Tyson. So
what do you attribute it to? Double A? Was it just?
I have forgot that they had said, and it kind of jogged my memory that Holyfield could be a dirty fighter.
The buddy.
A lot of times, the headbutts, the elbows. I have forgot about all that reputation that Evander had. So it could have frustrated Mike, sure. But again, he's not Mike Tyson from 87, 88. This is Mike Tyson just coming in and wanting to beat him. And Evander's too good of a fighter for you just to come in like that. Yeah. Just swinging. I'm sorry. He's just too good. And you can see the punishment he dealt on Mike that first fight. Right. He beat Mike. Yeah. Clear.
He would have needed that tighter training to maybe.
They thought by this point, which I was going to surprise at, they were like, Evander's washed up. Which I was already surprised that they were saying that by that time. Like, wow. Yeah. Okay. Like, they're like, this is a clear victory for Tyson. Evander's old. He's washed up. He's had too many battles, with his body, with the Riddick Bowe trilogy and, the Michael Moore and the George Foreman, all those fights. Yeah. And I was like, wow, okay. So they're already like saying Evander was like old and gone and he just shocked people. Yeah. So then we get the immediate rematch because the first one is so successful. Such a money maker.
Sure.
That, it was like, okay, let's do, 2. Yeah. Well, again, it sounds like it's the same thing. Holyfield's kind of doing the kind of like when they're holding, bumping, Mike's head,
they show the
elbows
cut,
probably,
splits him kind of early, right?
Yeah, because you can do so many things when you're clinched up. You can elbow the dude. You can bump him, move your head.
Yeah, that fucking messes with you, man.
So Tyson gets frustrated, and he does what no one has ever done before, and he fucking takes a big old bite out of Evander's ear and fucking rips it off and spits it out.
Oof.
And just that's the start really of the whole down.
Like
downfall of Tyson right here.
Maybe one of the wildest moments in like all of sports.
Tyson,
right?
like they have like a great picture of like Holyfield where he jumps up like where he's in like so much pain, Holyfield,
He fucking.
And that chaotic scene that happened. Afterwards,
it was like all their security and like everybody floods the ring, and it was like fucking insane. And then like, I mean, it was totally wrong.
Yeah. You don't do that. I mean, everyone was like, it's a disgrace.
Like everyone got on that real quick, though, too. I don't know.
I mean, biting someone's ear off, though. I mean,
I know it is. It's super awful. I guess it's so hard with this documentary because there's so much that you get to know about Mike that makes you feel sympathetic towards him. And then it's like he's like, what he does in a heinous act. And then it's obviously multiple heinous acts because of the conviction on the rape thing. But it's like when you're down, you're down. Not that I expect anybody to fucking have any sympathy on it, but of course, like all the media just tear him up so bad or whatever, and they show him talking in the back. Jim Gray's there, right? And he's like, "Why'd you do it? And he's like, "Don't you see my fucking?"
He's like pissed. He's like livid, and he's like, the motherfucker, he's like, he keeps headbutting me, keeps elbowing me, dirty.
Which and again, I don't want to pass blame, but I mean, like, is it the ref's job to kind of stop that stuff, Double A? Like, and be like,
but again, you can be real sneaky as a boxer.
Sure,
still do all that kind of
stuff, sure. I mean, I definitely think so because sometimes that stuff's happening and I'm not seeing it. I'm like, when did he get cut? And I'm like, oh, there must have been a butt in the clinch or whatever, Like, I mean, that's part of boxing. Mike shouldn't have reacted that way at all, but you know what I mean. He did, and again, like Double A said, that was a true that. At that point, it was like he didn't give a fuck anymore about being the bad guy. He's like, I'm the bad guy, and that's
and then that's when he pretty much starts accepting that. They show the interviews where he's just going off on people, and cussing all over Storm, and it's just controversy after controversy. They talk about when it's building up to Lennox, about eating, his heart and his kids.
Right. Is this around the time he gets the tattoo?
Yeah,
the famous, and he talks about it in his Undisputed Truth.
He didn't like looking at his face or something. Like Jim Gray says, like, why did you get the tattoo? And he's like, I didn't like looking at my face anymore.
Right. And then he says he was like, I call it PT post tattoo. He's like, because my life is like in two parts, like pre-tattoo and post tattoo, which is super funny. You know what I mean? To hear him say that. And he also says no, and he's like, it's my fucking face, and I do what I want with it. I just do what I want. I got a tattoo. Like, to him, he said it really wasn't that big of a fucking deal, whatever, but it made everyone be like, he's nuts, you know what I mean? And, shit, if anything, I'm more like, he had the Mao Zedong tattoo and all. He had some other controversial tattoos. It was like, that's the one y'all are focused on. But I mean, I guess it's on your face, but it's like, what the fuck else is he doing? It's not like he's going to go get a job at fucking Starbucks or whatever. So, so that happened.
Yeah, so it's like everything.
He loses his license, right?
Yeah,
box. He can't box anymore.
And that was a big deal too because Lennox really wanted to fight him, and they had to go like Memphis, to host that fight because there's a few places that were not sanctioning Tyson at all.
Yeah,
Vegas wasn't doing it, New York wasn't doing it, so Memphis was like, yeah, we'll do it.
Shit, I'm sure Texas would have done it too. It'd have been like,
pretty damn
come
sure.
on in.
Yeah, but it's just controversy after controversy. Interviews, the pre-fights, when he goes, when him and Lewis are standing and it's dark and he just gets off his podium. Yeah, that's pretty damn scary because I don't know if you could really see Tyson,
right?
And him and Lewis start going at it,
Well, especially at this point too, because you have to kind of imagine like after he's done that to Holyfield, you're thinking to yourself like, is this man like unhinged?
Is
like,
crazy,
is he? Although I did like because there is that part of me, the wrestling promoter in me is like. I like the "I'll eat your children" thing because you want a guy to talk trash. Because didn't Lewis have a great comeback, which is like, "You're going to eat my lefts and rights instead," and you're like, like these guys are talking shit. Like that's like
Lewis was never afraid of this.
Oh, I know, man, and he
was never intimidated by Tyson.
So clever and so sharp, just sharp as an individual, right? Sharp looking, man. Like I mean, Lennox Lewis, like you're consummate like, I miss British. Lennox.
Like when I saw the dude again, I was like, man, I miss this dude.
Yeah, I need to go with this YouTube highlights of the man or whatever. But I remember him being enjoyable. I mean, like, not necessarily a knockout artist, but
when he wanted to, he
had power and he was big and imposing. I mean, like, just again, a very regal about him. Like, you're like, man, I miss like that kind of guy being amongst the
I do,
heavyweights.
too.
You know what I mean? Like, man, it'd be like a good.
Yeah,
He's a good villain too.
By this point, it was just super outclassed. I mean, Lennox was, man, by far just so much better. And it's funny because like Emmanuel's like going crazy on Lennox, like he's got to knock him out quick. You know, you remember Emmanuel? He's just like going crazy.
Yeah.
You know, in the corner, like, stop playing with this motherfucker. You know,
right? I do remember that.
And I mean, he plays with Tyson until he finally like, okay, I've had enough, and he knocks him down.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you remember the poster? It was cool because it was Lewis Tyson, and they had highlighted "is on" in their last names, and I was like, man, that's great promoting too. Like, it got you hype.
And again, it was a big fight.
Yeah.
Another super mega fight. Yeah. So even though Tyson had all this bad stuff around him, all of his fights always generated millions of dollars.
Let's be honest, W. Those things even pumped it. It made even a non-boxing fan want to watch it. Because what's he gonna do next? You know what I mean? Is he gonna bite this guy too? I mean, or whatever. You know, it's like, you know, and again, like I said, it's just perfect. I mean, even the names, they're names in boxing. Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson. I mean, it's like, damn, the fight sells itself. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, it's like, so that's awesome. So he loses clearly to Lewis.
And then he has some more, but you know, like the last fight, you know, he pretty much says that, you know, he tells Jim Gray after the fight, I don't have it anymore.
I don't have the heart.
I don't have the fire anymore. I'm done. I'm retiring.
And it's funny because somebody in the documentary says, they go, usually your people tell you when it's over. He goes, but here he just told the world himself, like, no, I wasn't in it no more. And
so, you know, and it's kind of cool too. Before even this too, like after the Lewis fight, you know, they show him in the back where he's having his son. He's holding his son. Yeah. Miguel. He's holding him. You know, and it's right after the fight. You know, he's like, because you can tell the cuts around his eyes, and he's just like that. And it's like, you know, it looks like at that moment it was like after everything was said and done, it was like, okay, that he was probably thinking that might be my last big fight. Yeah. You know. Yeah, and he's in his trunks, and he's he doesn't have his wraps or anything on no more or whatever. But yeah, man, I mean, like, and it sucks. It sucks. Did you watch that fight live? Do you remember? Yeah, we did. We ordered it. I mean, again, here's a guy that you see so much in that you're like, man, how amazing, this gold medalist, the American dream, the world champion, the youngest. This guy, again, this guy's going to be the greatest fighter in the world. You know what I mean? And then you're really seeing the end of his career. He's closing his own chapter of his book by just giving up and quitting, and very unceremonious. Honestly, no, it's a good thing you do it like that instead of just keep going. Like I said, with Muhammad Ali, it was bad. He was getting beat up when he probably shouldn't have got beat up already. Yeah. You know, and it probably advanced his Parkinson's probably even more. More so. That's what to think about. I mean, because Ali was, you take out the speed and the power, and Ali's just an old man. Oh, yeah. That's very true. Yeah. So you think it was for money at that point for him, or what do you think? I don't know. He always seemed to be well off. You know, I know Tyson, it was kind of the money. Yeah. Towards the end. Yeah. You know, because he got himself into such big debt. But you know, it was cool that he was like, you know what, that's it. I'm done. I don't have the fire anymore. And if you don't have that in boxing, I would imagine you would need to have that. No, for sure. When you don't have it, you're just going to be a punching bag for someone. Yeah. You know, fuck that. It's kind of neat. I guess it's kind of neat. I never thought about it that way, Double A. Like, you know, it's like, you know, to just I guess I would have called a press conference, not done it necessarily there with Jim Gray at the end, but you know, I guess you're right. That's a very good point. I didn't think about it that way. You know what I mean? But again, though, I mean, that's, you know, saw this guy across the corner, and it's probably like, wow, I just lost to this fucking guy. Yeah, you know, this guy, which I don't even have any, I don't feel like even hurting him. Right. This guy's beating me up, punching me, knocking me out. Now he can say I beat Mike Tyson. Yeah, getting a name off of him. I mean, golly, that has to do something to your ego. Like, yeah, great. They talked to him too, right? Yeah. He was just like, I would have fought Tyson for free. He said that. Tyson. I would have fought Tyson for free. I mean, after a while, you got to start thinking about those losses that you're just like, this guy beat me. You know, this guy beat me. Right. You know? Right. You know? Pretty tough, man. Pretty tough, but. Yeah, so then I mean, like, that's pretty much it, right? Yeah, then he does some things where he's still not really happy. He does, you know, that Las Vegas thing, the training, where he said he's pretty much just like a monkey.
Yeah, that sucked, man. Yeah,
and he does put on weight.
He's doing like workouts, like in a ring,
like an exhibition
in the hotel lobby or whatever,
so people can see him train
at Vegas.
But he hates it. He says it. He's like, man, I fucking hate being around, all these people. And he gets to probably some more issues. His daughter dies.
Yeah, that was in 2009. I didn't know about that until this documentary.
It was brutal.
And I mean, again,
she was a very little girl.
Yeah, I think they said she was 9, and what a tragedy, a treadmill accident.
Yes. Yeah.
And he talked about that in his one-man show too, where he says to this day he doesn't know. She lived with the mom, and he was not in town. He had to fly in. I think they were in California, and he was in Vegas, I think, and he had to fly in. Yeah, because
he lived in. I think he moved himself to Vegas.
Right. Yeah, and he moved. He flew out right away, and she was brain dead already when he got there. But I mean, what? I mean, the man's fucking whole life is just, let's just say for the sake of argument that he didn't do what he was accused of with the rape thing or whatever, which he still says to this day he didn't. But he also has an interesting quote, which he says, I did enough other awful shit in my life that I needed, like, okay. that maybe this is, I'm getting what I deserve for being in jail. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, that's awful. You know what I mean? But again, it's like your life is literally just of this roller coaster of highs and lows, and you're marred by the moments in your life that you're ticking off are these fucking like tragic moments. I mean, like that is so. That I did not know that until I saw this documentary, and I was like,
I remember when it came out.
I was crushed for him.
Like, golly, you just hate when a little girl, a little boy dies.
Of course.
So with Kobe's daughter, that was awful.
Oh yeah, that made that thing was awful. But that news kind of breaking shortly after, we were like, what? Like you're like, oh, that just turned your stomach, man. I mean, like, but go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you, Double A, like, for you, you're a boxing fan, and you're a fan of you. We were all fans of this guy. The entire world was fans of this guy. You know what I mean? And like the truth is like probably in any one of those fights, even the ones that came after, it was like we probably were rooting for him. You know what I mean? Like against all those guys or whatever. Like we're like I mean,
I saw Evander way past his burn.
Yeah, yeah.
Still going for him.
But was it hard? Do you think it's harder? Like, was it harder as a fan to see like? You watch their whole career, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, man, like, this is where you're at now. Like,
yeah,
it's like,
it does. It sucks. Man. It really does. And, to see a guy get knocked out by someone that's just clearly inferior, would never even be able to touch you, just see him like that. Yeah. I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, please retire. You're almost like, please retire. You know?
And again, I just think it's different. Like, it's like sometimes you're born in like the midst of somebody's career or whatever. Like, I mean,
it happened to Joe Louis. Joe Louis, for some reason, even though he served in the military, somehow he owed the IRS money. This is like a damn hero, a war hero.
Shit.
And, his last image is a old man getting his ass knocked out bad by Rocky Marciano. Bad. It's one of the ugliest knockouts. He's just like this on the ropes here. Marciano just goes boom, and he just collapses out of the ring, into the commentator's table, and they're trying to hold his head up and everything. And it's brutal. It's brutal for this once great, everyone usually ranks as the greatest heavyweight champion ever, the greatest heavyweight, Joe Louis, and to see him like that, like the way Rocky Marciano knocked him out, it was brutal. Yeah. And to see Tyson the way he went out too, it's like, golly,
Yeah.
That's
your end.
Yeah.
It's almost like, like, again, I always end up going to relate into other sports, whatever, but it's like, you get to see Jordan, end his career potentially on that shot and go out a champion, but then it's like he comes back and does
with the Wizards,
and you're like, whatever.
And you could tell he was just a shell because he wasn't shooting the way he was, And, and the fan vote, it was kind of like the players said, I'll step away so Jordan can start.
Right.
It was like, wow.
Right.
Like, golly.
And it's just like, man, like you could have left on your terms at the top of the world. You know what I mean? But, I mean, I get it. You think it's still in you and you just can't let it go. You know what I mean? But, guys, we're up again at probably what will be our last break, I think. I think this will be our last 30-minute block here. But we're going to go in and read a little bit of comments. You know how we do things here every 30 minutes. We take a break, read through your comments. We're really sorry about the earlier technical difficulties, but we think we've worked through it now. So thank you for joining us on Just Another Friday Night. Thursday night edition for the second week of row. But next week we'll be back on Friday, guys.
Yeah.
So we'll take this quick break and then we'll be right back. For audio listeners, you won't hear anything much but a brief silence. Guys, thanks for hanging in there. Those of you that are still out there with us in the Facebook Live world, we know the earlier technical difficulties probably that really screwed us up, but hey, it happens. What are you going to do? So Mario says, Mario in the house, big Tyson fan, have my signed photo with all the belts.
Holy
Christ.
crap. Wow.
Mario, post a picture of that. We want to see that picture, man. That's awesome. We didn't get to see that during our visit with you, man.
Wow.
But yeah, man, that's awesome,
it's
Mario.
just, and it's like anywhere, it's hard to see like a Ric Flair that kept going. It's hard to see like a Hulk Hogan,
right?
It kept going. Shawn Michaels, Undertaker. That was really hard.
Yeah.
As much as you're like, man, Undertaker doesn't look good. He should retire, but then when it does happen, you're just like, shit.
Yeah, and then too, like when you're on the big stage, like you're at Mania, you're in the last match, and like you can't really get a guy up for your finisher or whatever. It's like,
Well, and even in football too, like Manny retired. It was like, wow, Manny's gone, and Drew Brees now is gone, and all these players, like, man, it really hit hard when like Duncan retired and Kobe retired, and Garnett retired, and Dirk retired, and Shaq retired. It was like, wow, like all those guys that we saw all those wars in the late '90s or 2000s.
Yeah,
they all retired. And it was
you kind of
like,
get it when people are like, man, thanks for the memories.
Yeah.
Like, for real, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the Duncan one is especially interesting because it's like, I feel like we saw the start of his career when we're like our older minds, like we were already older, you know what I mean? Like, it's different with like Jordan or whatever and stuff like that, because like we might have not started really watching until a little bit later.
Yeah.
But with Duncan, I mean, like we were already all into it, because we were watching the Robinson years and some of the losing, the big losses. And then it's like, we're like, oh man, this is our moment, like our number one. And then we watched the entirety of his career.
But it's crazy when all those athletes started retiring.
Right.
Mario actually has a good one. He goes,
totally.
Who did it right? And I would say that the guy who did it right is probably David. He already knew his back was hurting. He announced it before the season started. He goes, this is going to be my last season.
That's it.
He goes, my back is just too fucked up now. And you know what happened? The Spurs go on a tear, and we end up winning the title. And he
out a champion, man.
Went out as a champion.
Big Dave. That's a great pull on. Did it right. I love Tom Brady or whatever. He's still going, and the guy just won again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's kind of like,
a freak.
Now you got to ask yourself that question. It's like, I just won again. I could walk away right now, but you're like, but I'm not losing. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, that's a great pull. Robinson definitely did do it right.
Mario said, Jim Brown, Barry Sanders.
I think Barry cut himself short.
From what I read, Detroit had him pretty much locked down, and they said that they're going to rebuild. And Barry was like, no, I'm not staying around for another 3-4 years before we get playoff again. Yeah. And he retired. He just retired. He was like, no, I'm done. And Jim Brown, I think he had won some titles, some NFL titles, which were, Super Bowls before the Super Bowl.
Right.
And he just, he was like, after 8 years, he was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
But 12,000 yards in 8 years.
Definitely a beast. Yeah. And went on to some films, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did
quite a bit of films.
Yeah.
So Mario, who do you think did it right in your opinion? Anyone from the boxing world that you think did it right? Double A, you got anybody?
Lennox, he went out still as a champ
on his terms, right? And like,
because like Vladimir, he started losing.
Yeah, I remember when he got
when Joshua beat him. That was big news.
Yeah, that was the big thing right there. I don't know. There's something kind of neat about that to me, because it's like you talked about the Marciano one or whatever, and it's like it's almost like, does this guy have the responsibility to say like, hey, oh man, you're done, and I'm gonna make sure that you're done. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna end your career. You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's kind of like going out on your shield, right? Like, I could, retire like an old man with my boots off or whatever, but fuck, I want to die in the ring or whatever. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of interesting to think about it that way. You know what I mean? Like,
you can even say Marciano. He retired undefeated as a heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah.
When it was really bigger, it meant a whole lot more than what Tyson, that heavyweight belt. Because that was the single greatest belt in all of sports.
Right.
Was the heavyweight champion. So
I
mean, you can say The Rock, the Marciano.
That's an interesting one. I like that
top,
answer.
Retiring on top.
Floyd, undefeated.
Sure.
You know
if
what
he
I mean?
stays, if he stays undefeated.
Well, I mean, who else is he gonna? He's gonna fight some more TV personalities.
Well, now they're talking about him and De La Hoya, so I mean, who knows?
You know what? Dolly, it's so funny how much we rooted for that guy to lose, and it never happened. And I used to think to myself in the later years, I was like, at this point, it doesn't even matter because he went so many years undefeated. It's like the legacy's already there. So it's like it's untarnished, But tough to think about on that one, Let's see.
Canelo. Canelo is going to be the one 4 or 5 more years and walk away.
Yeah. It kind of sucks. Maybe Triple G could have had something like that too, but the losses, well, I don't know. I think Canelo could definitely be the one for sure. That'd be a you got to I guess you got to know, right? Like, you got to have your people tell you too, like, okay, you know what I mean?
Now we're getting beat up. Like Durant fought until he was like in his 50s, way past his prime. Tommy Hearns too, he fought way past his prime.
Yeah.
There's
so many factors too, right? Where it's like, like we talked about the money thing, like, is it money or whatever? And it's funny.
That could be, I mean, there's still like offers like, hey, I mean, Durant's still a good name. What if we gave you $3 million a fight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or, I mean, like not to do, what happens sometimes, with our good friend Friday Nighter Holte, bring up Rocky or whatever. But, the movie kind of shows, like this boxer that still thinks he has one more fight in and one more, or maybe he just needs to get it out of his system so that he can be like, oh, yeah, I'm done. You know what I mean? You need someone to beat it into you that I'm done. You know what I mean? But obviously for him, goes out on a loss with that epic, you know what I mean? Kind of like he goes the distance with the champ.
But at that point, it's almost like with Foreman. When Foreman went 12 rounds with Evander Holyfield, who was considered the younger, stronger heavyweight, against this older guy who at the time was like 42, I believe. And Foreman goes the whole distance with him. I mean, that was like, a lot of people say it was a huge win for Foreman.
And sometimes maybe that's what they need in their mind to be like, I can't. It must be difficult to walk away from that thing that is like what defines you.
I would imagine it is.
You know what I mean?
It's like he said. It's like your brain and your heart saying, "I can probably win. I can probably go in and beat this guy." But then when you go in there, and this guy is just so much faster than you, and it's just using you as a punching bag, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
You gotta get it, like I said, kind of beat into you. Mario says, what did Tyson say? And he says, I was a beast. These guys are businessmen. Yeah, man, for sure. Great comments. Let's get into this last block AA talking about the great documentary, The Knockout. Mike Tyson, The Knockout from ABC, which was super cool to watch, man. I can't thank you enough for reminding me and telling me to turn that on and give that a watch, because it made for great viewing and now a great episode. Our first foray into one of our favorite sports, which is boxing.
I love boxing.
It's good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right, let's get it going here. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us through the brief little blip there. Some great comments in the meantime during the break.
And Mario threw
Mario says, don't ask me to stop being a man. Rocky. Yeah, that's right. Classic. Mario Delgado in the house offering us some great commentary. Huge boxing fan like ourselves. Many times in the Comics Enforcement, talking solely about boxing and not even about comics. So guys, continue to comment for those who are still joining us right now on our early in the week edition tonight on Thursday. Next week we'll be back on Friday, and then we got some kind of weird dates going on in the rest of July, but we'll give you those. We're going to have a Wednesday show and another Thursday show, and then I think we'll be all the way back to normal after that. So guys, what we're talking about again, it was Mike Tyson, The Knockout. ABC does this 2-parter, very cool, covering pretty much Tyson at the beginning of his career, right up until when he fights Roy Jones. And so where are we at now, Double? We're pretty much at
now it's kind of like, okay, he's kind of starting to stop being like miserable, and he's kind of start building up his image again. He does the Hangover, which it's a big moment for a lot of people, and he gets rave reviews for his little bit that he's in there, you know, and he starts
like people were happy to see him, right? Like there was this collective, you know, there's even the great line from the character in the movie when he knocks out Zach Galifianakis and he's like, man, you know, still got it. Like, I was like damn, you know,
I was like, oh, like I was nervous on that part. I was like, oh, and then when he knocked him out, I was like, oh,
he looked like he was dead. I was like, shit. But it's such a funny scene. It's so
but it sets him up. So like he starts kind of making his rounds again, you know, and you know, he does like, you know, he offers Evander an apology on Oprah. And,
that was very cool.
They make up, you know.
Doesn't every time that he does something like that, doesn't it seem so genuine and so heartfelt? How many times do we hear about apologies and things like that? Or how many times do you even do it in your own life or whatever? And it's like, you're just saying it because you have to, and it's not just, it's like every time they say the one they talked about with him and Teddy Atlas, this one with Evander. I mean, you can see he's putting his hand on his arm and he's like, thank you for like he just wants them to kind of really accept his apology and know that it's genuine.
And they show too, because like him and Evander are friends now, you know, they are friends. And then, you know, like we talked about earlier with Teddy, they finally mend that you know, broken relationship for a long time, you know.
It's almost kind of what they say about like, if you're, what I've heard or seen in movies, that when you're going through like the steps of what is like recovering from addiction or something like that, and it's like you go one of the steps is you go and to all the people that you've wronged, whatever, maybe you ripped some money off somebody or whatever, or you cheated on somebody, whatever. So you go and try to make those amends as part of your healing process. I mean, I don't know if somebody told Mike that or he was just doing that on his own, but he kind of does go on that.
I think he did on his own. By this point, I think he's on his own. You know, he gets back into really great shape at the end of the interview. He looks great. Like he looks like in the Hangover. He was a little bit bloated, but here he looked slim. He looked trim.
Really sharp. Like, he's wearing this nice black tight sweater and some nice pants, and I'm like, damn, Mike, looking good. You know what I mean?
You know, he's walking with his son. You know, in his you know segment that they're doing, and
they reference too that he did his one-man show, which was a huge success.
That was great. If you guys get a chance, we'll try to make sure we'll find where it's streaming at for sure, and check that one out. That one's a great companion piece, I say, to this one.
And incredibly funny, and in his own words.
And there's a lot of blanks where like the knockout kind of leaves, where Undisputed kind of like covers. So it's kind of like a really good like 3-part thing.
I'm so pleased that I watched it or whatever. And then it's like so funny, right? This week, like I didn't know this because they didn't talk about this in either of them, but he had this cartoon for a while on Adult Swim.
Did on Adult Swim.
Mike Tyson Mysteries. It did 4 seasons. I think he was the voice of himself.
Yeah, he was.
And I mean, like, how cool is that? Like, he found other avenues to have.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Success. Like, he started rebuilding his image again. To where it was like, oh, it's Mike Tyson. Now he's like, before in the 90s, 2000s, it was controversy. It was like no one wanted a piece of him. Now he's regarded as a true legend of boxing, one of the greatest heavyweights champions of all time, one of the great heavyweights of all time, one of the biggest drawing, you know, pay-per-view boxers of all time. You know, now people are kind of talking about him in that light now, you know, whereas like he's considered a true Hall of Famer, a true legend of boxing. So, you know, rightfully he's become a really great ambassador for boxing too. So,
I mean, it's so neat to see him in this documentary, The Knockout, putting film on the actual old film projector. You know what I mean? And like looking through the films, that old footage, him at Cuss's house, and getting out the films. And here's a guy that maybe didn't even know who a boxer was when he was at the streets of Brooklyn or whatever, then gets this education from this man that probably couldn't be more different from him, this older Italian man, gives him this education, and then the guy finds this love for something or whatever. Maybe for me and you, Double A, it's like picking up our first comic book or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's like, you know, again, we watched the guy's not just his career in boxing, but his life kind of unfold in front of us, and really, really high peaks and really, really low valleys. And that's like, you know, like I said, I told Double A before, I was like, man, there was many parts of this and in the Undisputed Truth that like, man, it was pretty emotional. Like, it's really sad or whatever, you know what I mean? But again, it's also one of my favorite kind of stories, which is I love a story about redemption. I'm like, you know, if the collective public can accept him again, and
which it seemed like it did with open arms.
Yeah, and now again, like it's like, I'd love to have Mike on this show. You know what I mean? Again, I referenced earlier the comedian Tom Segura, who does these bits about him or whatever in two of his different comedy specials, and it's really funny. It's this really funny personal tale of him meeting Tyson on an airplane, and it goes on from there. I recommend you look it up on YouTube. You can find it. I think there's even one somebody made like an animated version of it or whatever. It's the actual voiceover, but of the comedy, but they put it to animation. But I mean, it's like, damn, you know what I mean? He was able to kind of come back from some of the worst shit ever.
Being like a black mark on boxing or again, where he's kind of like respected, highly respected, Now, when you have like a power puncher that comes along, it's always, will this guy be the next Mike Tyson?
Yeah. And he goes still to a lot of fights, right?
He goes to a lot of fights.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, let's see.
Mara says he needs to get behind a new hungry fighter and be the new.
Oh, I like that story, that narrative right there, Mario. Very, you're reminiscent of what earlier in the night, Friday Nighter Rich said. What would we think of him as a trainer? I think it's a lot to offer.
Yeah, Mara says he would love to see him in the corner. I wonder what kind of advice he would give him.
Can you imagine? Yeah. Can you imagine? I think
it's different. They always say it's different. What a boxer sees in the ring is totally different what the manager sees outside of the ring.
Mm-hmm.
There is like, the boxer always being stubborn. It's like, no, this is working. Where the manager's like, bullshit, that's not working. You're getting your ass kicked.
Right. Right. Yeah. Sometimes you have to recognize the different mind
until they see the fight on again, when they see the fight, they're like, oh shit, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Double A, anything else on, or maybe Mario, if you're out there still with us, anything else on the Jamie Foxx supposed biopic, him as Tyson?
Really?
Yeah, that's who they supposedly cast, was Jamie Foxx to play Tyson in a biopic. It had a lot of steam and word around it at one time, but I haven't heard too much else. And I was like, man, Jamie Foxx is going to have a lot of stuff coming up, being Electro, and then obviously being was supposed to Spawn, right?
Yeah.
So wherever that's at, you know what I mean? It's like, man, come on, Jamie Foxx, get these projects going or whatever. Because those would be three great things I would love to see. The Tyson biopic.
It'd be an interesting bio.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it has. Again, the man's story in life reads like a movie, so it has all the elements there or whatever. But I definitely think Jamie Foxx can pull it off. You know what I mean? So
I don't know, man. Cool to see. He might be too up there to play. I don't know.
Jamie, you think so?
He might be too old now.
Interesting. Well, I don't know. That's what last I heard about the casting. There was that, but let's play. What if again? Double A.
Okay. All right.
Let's say, I don't know. I guess Mike could have fell into the hands after cuss of, could have potentially, right, Emmanuel Stewart as well, right?
Let's just say, for instance, he, nothing happened. Mm-hmm. None of his handlers died.
Mm-hmm.
He still has his promoter. He still has his trainers. They're all looking out for him. I can't see anyone stopping this guy. If you kept this guy focused and you kept his fighting skills the way they were, Buster Douglas would have got knocked out real easy. Mm-hmm. All those same opponents would have got knocked down. Now, it would have been interesting to see a 1992, 1993 fight against Evander. That would have been something.
Yeah.
I will, maybe even Riddick Bowe.
When it was initially supposed to happen.
Yeah. How he would have done against Riddick Bowe. How he would have even done against Lennox Lewis at that time. Because Lennox was still a big threat in the early 90s.
No, for sure.
I don't know. It'd be interesting. It'd be really interesting. Maybe he could take on Holyfield a little bit better.
Yeah.
Bit
better preparation. And
Holyfield was tough, though. Holyfield was a fucking strong, tough bastard.
See, it sounded like what we kind of talked about earlier about having strategy, that there was a Holyfield strategy that was like make him uncomfortable, get him riled up. You know what I mean? Like, so. And
then there was even talks about putting him and Foreman together.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how that would have been for Foreman, honestly, because, there's that, you remember, that footage of Evander hitting Foreman like 12 times in a row, right? Where he's like, Evander's like, giving him everything he has.
I think I do remember that.
And like, it's not even like phasing Foreman whatsoever. He's just like, woo, woo, woo. Now a Tyson doing that 12 straight times, ooh.
Yeah.
Because Big George didn't get knocked down once when he came back.
Right.
No one knocked him down. So it would have been interesting to see if Tyson could have knocked him
And
down.
he always looked like a fucking oak tree in there, man. Like
He
I was
did.
like, man, I mean, like something about, I don't know, young George looks scary.
Young George, I would have liked to have seen Young George versus Prime Tyson.
Oh,
God,
wow. Now that would have been a fucking
his stories look
heavyweight
fucking
fight.
scary.
Yeah, definitely. When he fought Ali, right? I mean, like that.
Yeah,
that time?
yes. Well,
I
the
mean,
way he
whoa.
destroyed Joe Frazier,
Yeah.
he knocked Joe Frazier down like 6 or 7 times.
Oh man,
You know,
that's crazy. That is so crazy. But yeah, like I said, not as intimidating older Foreman, but still just look like this. Like
I think Tyson probably could have reigned from 86 to about 92, 93, maybe. You know,
like that. Yeah, good. That's a good. Yeah, that's a solid.
I really think
right
he
there.
could have. You know, there's no one that could have stopped this dude when he was that undisputed reigning champion from 87 to 90 when he had all 3 belts.
Yeah, that classic picture we talked about on the T-shirt, right?
Man, honestly, I don't know who could have beat him. Maybe a Muhammad Ali could have beat him. Maybe, you know, because Muhammad Ali beat Sonny Liston, Joel Frazier, and George Foreman. 3 of the meanest, hardest hitting punchers ever in history. And, you know, he made Sonny Liston quit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he beat Joe Frazier, you know, by decision at TKO. And then he beat, you know, he knocked out Foreman.
Yeah.
You know, so
that's crazy, man, to think about. You know what I mean? Just you know, we hate to play what if, you know what I mean? But you know, the question is there for a reason because the guy was so dominant and in his time, you know what I mean?
It's a big what if, but you know what? He had enough wins where he's not that what if. You know, like they always say Bill Walton was probably could have been a really, really great center.
Mm-hmm.
But injuries fucked him up. So he only had maybe like about 2 years, I think, 2-3 years.
Yeah.
That you can actually see what Bill Walton was about. But hey, we'll never know.
We'll never know. And
you know, should he be a first ballot Hall of Famer? Probably not. Damn. You know, but Tyson, though, we did have years of him dominating. Years.
Yeah, and he was the world heavyweight champion of the
recognized
world,
as the champion. So
and you told me, you know, we said it's still to this day the youngest ever world heavyweight champion.
He has names. He beat really big names. He just made them look easy.
Yeah. And the way things are going, I don't see there being another heavyweight that young. I mean, like, you know, it really is one of these kind of once. What did they say in the documentary? Once every 100 years, you get this really like kind of thoroughbred, and man, just the unfortunateness of the man's life. You know, I mean, again, and maybe who knows? Maybe had he stayed in the ring all that time, he'd be worse for wear physically, mentally,
just like any other boxer.
Sure, yeah. The more punches you take in the head, I mean, then
your body can only take so much beatings.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure. So maybe instead we get the Tyson that we get now. You know what I mean? But Mario says he lost the only person who was always in his corner. Literally, he would have dominated Double A. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I think
agree wholeheartedly here, man.
But unfortunately, history didn't play out that way. And people did die around him, and you know, he got to the shape he was by the time Buster Douglas came around. And
yeah,
he was just never that Tyson again. You know, so
we need Wanda Maximoff or Doctor Strange to take us into the multiverse and see the other Tyson that would have been or whatever. But you know what? After all said and done, I'm pretty okay with this Tyson too. You know what I mean? I'm glad to see him have a resurgence. It's glad,
good, and he looks good. He looks in shape again. And again, the clips I've seen of him, and the man still can move. You know, and he still looks scary.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. And he had that fight with Roy Jones, which we watched.
I thought he looked way better than Roy Jones.
Yeah, he looked.
It looked like he was like playing with Roy Jones, where Roy Jones looked bad. He looked gassed. And Roy was hurting. He was holding his sides, remember?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. And he said to himself, he's like, you don't know what's going to happen when you get 2 guys that are kind of like, that's what you do. You know what I mean? In there together.
Roy looked bad. But Tyson looked great.
Yeah, Tyson looked great. And he had a really great interview on Joe Rogan's podcast too. That was, you know, kind of classic Tyson a little bit, you know what I mean? Where, you know, he would just going off the rails, you know what I mean? Like not crazy, but kind of trying to express to Joe Rogan what it was like to fight, you know what I mean? And saying things like that, you know, that violence in in the ring like that could be orgasmic, you know what I mean?
That's right.
It's just a great, I think it's promoting
but
it.
You know what? I think it was like he got, after his resurgence again of his building his image, I think he found that love again for boxing.
Yes.
That true love of boxing.
Yeah.
Not just wanting to go out there and kill someone, just that true love of boxing.
Yeah.
And I think that he got it back.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, because he said too, it was kind of funny. He said he's like, you just go do it one time, and then it's like, it's back. You know what I mean?
And people are like going crazy for him, and they're like, "Whoa, how about a third Holyfield fight?"
Oh,
people are talking about that already.
That would be something.
Yeah, so
I'd watch it. I definitely.
But now because of Tyson, now you're getting all these other ones. Now De La Hoya,
right?
Mayweather came back with that Jake Paul,
right?
And all this other stuff. Now he kind of gave people like, oh look, we can do this too.
Yeah,
we fight against other people. Julio Cesar Chavez just fought.
Yeah,
I just told you.
That's crazy.
Hector Camacho Jr. You know? So I mean, even crazy. He came back.
Shit, Double A. Well, overall, man, I mean, good stuff. Great documentary, guys.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I've been drooling at the mouth to do a boxing episode.
Yeah,
I couldn't think of a better start than Iron Mike.
Yeah, man. I mean, like I said, it's like, do you put him on your Mount Rushmore of boxing?
No.
Okay. No. Do you put him in your personal top 5?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
There's just too many other better heavyweights.
Okay.
If Tyson had stayed the course, sure, maybe I would have. But
no,
I mean, Muhammad Ali, Joe Louis, there's just so many good fighters out there that are probably way better. Yeah. Lennox, I always have a soft spot for Lennox. So what I saw that man do in the ring, golly, that man was beautiful to watch too.
It's funny though, because if you think about names that are synonymous with boxing in the boxing world, you probably think Ali, and then you probably think Mike Tyson.
For sure.
So,
I mean, that just goes to show you how big these personalities were.
Absolutely.
That, when you think boxing, you can think Tyson, Ali.
Absolutely.
Right away.
There's no one. There's, what I mean. Ask a novice, someone that knows nothing about boxing, to name you 3 boxers, his name will come out.
It's like you said, TM. It's when Tyson was at his peak, or even in the 90s, a non-boxing fan wanted to be in on it. Just to be there. Just how it is. Either at the bars that are hosting it, people that are hosting it, it's like, hey, my friend wants to come too. He or she want to see the whole spectacle. They're not even real boxing fans, but they want to just be in it. Well,
that's the thing. Seeing a Tyson fight was an event.
Exactly.
What I mean? There's a really cool part in the documentary too for our music fans, where the hip hop fans, where Rosie Perez talks about his relationship, Mike Tyson's relationship with Tupac Shakur or whatever. Obviously killed on the night after a Mike Tyson fight or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, where those things are kind of tied. Excuse me, together forever. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, that's another like kind of again big part of the lore and that is Mike Tyson. You know what I mean? So, I love him. I think he's great. You know what I mean? I'll watch his stuff. I'll watch what he does next.
He's a guy that if they have that, any kind of fights on him, I'm gonna be watching.
Yeah.
But again, it's like a wrestling Mount Rushmore. I'm looking at it kind of like at a different perspective.
No, I get it.
He wouldn't be on my Mount Rushmore, but he's he has to be one of the top 20 greatest heavyweights.
Okay.
Ever.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like it. I'm there for it, man. And I was there for this documentary. We recommend that you guys go check it out. If you have Hulu, it's on there still right now. I just checked. I'll probably watch it again. I don't know if it goes away after a while, but I'll check it out again for sure. And I might even go check out his cartoon on Adult Swim, the Mike Tyson Mysteries, just to see what it's all about. You know what I mean? So I see the pigeon is one of the characters. So, and he just seems like he's a guy of peace. And again, and that's what he really looks for. And he says he's very focused on his family. Everyone says he has a great wife now.
Yeah, and she was Kiki, a really good looking woman.
Yeah, very great look. I'm like, way to upgrade, Mike. You know what I mean? So, good for him. Like even Jim Gray had said, he's like, everyone tells him it's the best thing that happened to you in 10 years, and she's taking care of him. And
like you said, he's got that really high level of respect now. Now it's like Mike Tyson, Hall of Famer.
I love a redemption story. I love a story of that you can be at that possibly the lowest of the low.
Yeah, and he
AA.
was probably the lowest any boxer.
Losing every single loved one you have, losing a child, going to jail, having to carry around being a convicted rapist. I mean, like, that's awful. I mean, and again, let's just tell ourselves in our, let's just, for the sake of the argument, like, say that he was innocent. How fucking much must that suck to lose 3 years of your life in jail? You know what I mean? And if he was not, it was guilty, well, then you know what I mean?
And it's like he said, he was like, well, out of all stuff, he said he didn't do this, but all the other stuff that he did do that was pretty bad.
Yeah.
He said she paid for it like that. So
I'm sure, man. And he tells the story about his first fight. You heard that story?
Yes.
The guy takes his pigeon and kills it and stuff like that. Super crazy, man. Like, that's so crazy. But
Mario has one more comment.
Let's see, Mario's comment.
If he's involved in or out of the ring, I'm there. Man, that's pretty much what we were. We got the fight right away.
Yeah.
So
totally, Mario, man. Check it out. Mario, what's some great memorabilia for Iron Mike out there for people? Maybe some ring magazines. I don't know if that's still floating around.
Man,
but,
and he does have great covers.
I would imagine
of the ring magazines.
I would imagine.
I've been wanting to buy myself some on eBay.
They showed some of them. They kind of showed them flapping down that classic.
Man. Yeah, that Kid Dynamite looks awesome.
Ah, that's fucking sweet, man. Yeah, I own a copy of Mike Tyson's Punch Out still on NES. I like to just play at home or whatever. I never do the code to get to Mike because that's just ass whipping right there. You know what I mean? But a fun game to play.
And he's always ranked as one of the hardest bosses.
Yeah,
he's always ranked at, like, when they always rank the NES games. He's always right up there.
He came not that long ago, right?
Yes,
we missed a chance to see him.
I hate myself.
Yeah, man. I mean, I remember it was pricey though. It's pretty pricey.
Yeah, but damn it,
Hey, man, there's some ones that did get away.
Yeah.
But shit, AA, what do you think? Call this one a show for tonight on Thursday?
Yeah.
All right.
Look real quick.
Let's see. Here we go. Oh, wow. That's awesome. Mario says, I have all my dad's old ring covers. Nice. Very, very cool.
I want to see that collection.
Yeah, for sure, man. We got on our next visit.
I want to see that.
But behind the closed
I
doors.
might just be by myself reading what you guys are talking about.
Awesome, man, Mario. Hey, well, we appreciate everyone that came to join us on the Just Another Thursday night edition of Just Another Friday Night.
Sorry about the earlier problems.
Yeah, man, technical difficulties.
It looks like some of our fans had a hard time getting back to us. So.
Yeah. You know what? Next time we'll do like an internet check. I'll disconnect and reconnect before, just to kind of maybe freshen it up in the. I don't know, guys. I don't fucking know technology. I'm just here trying to run this show as best I can. But either way, we should have some good stuff for you next week. I don't know. We don't know what the topic is yet, do we? Oh, I think that's our pre-4th of July show.
Yes, so we do have a topic.
We do know what the topic is.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to celebrating the 4th and American independence with you guys in a similar fashion to last year. Let's see what else we got here comment-wise before we get out of here. Anytime, brothers. Good night. Well done. Thank you so much, Mario. We appreciate you being here. I'm glad you made it for our boxing episode.
Yeah.
The inaugural boxing episode. The first time we talk about boxing, but definitely not the last.
No, hell no. I love boxing. Like I said in our epic basketball episode, boxing is my number one sport. Yeah. I love boxing. Me and my dad will watch it. Again, I have that great story I want to tell real quick. When Tony Ayala came back, he was one of my dad's favorites when he was younger. Mm-hmm. And, it was him and Yori Boy. And it was a pay-per-view fight. Campos. And for some reason that night, they showed it like at 2:00 in the morning. And they showed it, even though it was on pay-per-view earlier. And my dad walked in on me in my room. It was like 2:00 in the morning. He's like, "What are you doing awake?" And I was like, "Dad, they're showing the Tony fight and Yori Boy from tonight." Yeah. They're showing, and he sat there with me. And my brother Will is gone because we have to share a room. Yeah. And me and my dad stayed up for like that whole hour, and watched the whole fight. And after it was done, he was like, "Okay, you gotta go to sleep already." Even though it was like summertime.
Pretty awesome, man.
So I mean, boxing for me, it means a great deal to me. I watched it with my dad. So and still do. So so.
Awesome, man. Same. I love boxing too. I have fond memories again of spending time with AA's dad.
And he still does. He still comes over here when I get it. So
these guys know that I'm a huge fan. I'm by no means an aficionado or an expert or whatever. I just love a good fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So to me, boxing is just again, like we've said before, the sweet science.
Sweet science.
It's fun. It's fun
when
to
it's
watch.
done
man.
right, it's beautiful to watch.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, guys, there's something that we like to say here on Just Another Friday Night. Anytime we do a show, even if it's on a Thursday, and that is, guys, if there's something that you want to do with your life, something that you want to accomplish, a mission, a goal, a purpose, maybe like Mike had to become the youngest heavyweight champion ever, do it. You know what I mean? Go out there and seize the day. Take life by the horns, grab the reins, get in the ring, put on a pair of gloves, whatever it may be, seize the day, make today your day, go and do it, make it happen. And in order to do that, you're going to have to go through trials and tribulations like Mike did. You're going to have to do whatever it takes. For him, it was going to jail and maybe, finding a different kind of religion and maybe getting the right woman in his life, or being in a movie called The Hangover and hanging out with a tiger and reliving some of that past glory, but leads you into a path that takes you to where you want to be. Like Captain America says, Captain Steve Rogers, we got to do whatever it takes. So guys, for myself, CM Chuck here of Just Another Friday Night, and
Double A.
Guys, it's been great. Thanks for hanging out. Have a good night, and we will see you next week, actually on Friday.
Yeah.
So good night, guys.